Moody Radio Cleveland, 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Four 546-2255 for a link to register.
Whether you're investing, saving, paying off debt, going to college, or buying a new car, God's wisdom can guide our decisions as we're seeking to live as faithful stewards to advance His kingdom. Hi, I'm Rob West, host of Faith and Finance Live. Listen each day as I take your calls at 800-525-7000 on any financial topic. It's Faith and Finance Live on Moody Radio, weekdays at 4 p.m., where our faith defines our financial decisions.
We were made for God and nothing other than God Himself. Seeing Him, knowing Him, serving Him, pursuing His glory, nothing else will ultimately satisfy us.
Here is Jonathan Griffiths with today's Moment of Truth.
Now, some might charge that God is somehow egotistical or unduly selfish to make a universe centered on His glory. But I think we only start to think that way when we fail to recognize that God Himself is the only one who is truly glorious, the only one who can ever satisfy the longings of our soul, the only one who can bring true and lasting joy. When I was younger, we used to sing a chorus at a Christian camp I was part of. Perhaps you know it. It's a simple little thing. But it was such a good truth to sing and to remember. All that I need is in Jesus. He satisfies. Joy He supplies. Life would be worthless without Him. All things in Jesus I find. If you and I don't see and recognize that the universe is built around God and for His glory, if we don't see that, if we don't get it, the alternative is that we will seek to find meaning elsewhere. And as we do that, well, we find ourselves at the very heart of what the Bible calls idolatry. We replace the worship of the true and living God with the worship of an alternative God or gods of our own choosing, and the results of that are disastrous. The worship of anything other than the true and the living God, it is not only unsatisfying, it is destructive.
That's Jonathan Griffiths with today's Moment of Truth. To learn more, visit encounterthetruth.org.
Serving Erie, Huron, and Lake counties and beyond. This is Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVME Meadville, WVMN Newcastle, WVMU Ashtabula, or stream us anywhere with the Moody Radio app, other streaming services, and at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
The U.S. is holding talks with Russia over the end of the Ukraine war. It is 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is part of the UN delegation meeting today in Saudi Arabia. That's U.S. delegation. Ukraine is not taking part in the talks, with President Volodymyr Zelensky noting the lack of an invitation. With temperatures forecasted to rise no higher than the mid-teens today, a number of local school districts have canceled their classes. Families are advised to check with their student's school district to learn what their plans are for the day. And the Ohio Department of Agriculture is looking to support the state's farmers as they deal with the impacts of avian flu. State officials are now partnering with the Ohio Farm Bureau to launch the We Got Your Back campaign. Those who work in agriculture can get access to free mental health care through this initiative. In sports, NFL teams can begin franchise tagging players this afternoon. Neither the Browns or Steelers are expected to tag any of their players. Here is your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly cloudy today. Highs around 13. Yep, that's the high. And the wind chill can be as low as 11 below zero this morning. At last check, it was cloudy and 10 degrees in Cleveland. Akron and Canton reported some flurries with the temperature 4 degrees. In Ashtabula, clear skies and 8 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
Do you ever get sick of seeing ads for things that have no interest to you? In Google's Ad Center, you can browse everything Google knows about you and delete it if you want, block ads that you don't like, and adjust the categories that you see. If you have to have ads, after all, they might as well be relevant to you. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:02 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine studio, it's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Worthy stand tall and strong. Men united where faith belongs. Embrace your calling, hear God's voice. In Christ make your heart rejoice. Walk worthy brothers hand in hand. Courage rising across the land. One day, one purpose, one mighty call. Together we'll answer, standing tall.
Set up your calendar for Walk Worthy, our annual men's conference on March 1st. We hope to see you again at Canton Baptist Temple. Register at moodyconferences.com.
Walk worthy, stand tall and strong. Men united where faith belongs. Embrace your calling, hear God's voice. In Christ make your heart rejoice. Walk worthy brothers hand in hand. Courage rising across the land. One day, one purpose, one mighty call. Together we'll answer, standing tall. Walk worthy, stand tall and strong. Men united where faith belongs. Embrace your calling, hear God's voice. In Christ, make your heart rejoice. Walk worthy, brothers, hand in hand. Courage rising across the land. One day, one purpose, one mighty call. Together we'll answer, standing tall. Walk worthy, brothers, hand in hand. Courage rising across the land. One day, one purpose, one mighty call. Together we'll answer, standing tall.
That was Ron Eastwood on WCRF Moody Radio, the AI stylings of Ron Eastwood.
Not my vocals.
Although, I mean, you could have fooled me.
Walk worthy brothers hand in hand. Similar.
I guess it's not, doesn't sound like you. But that's fine. You sound great, Ron. Hey, Walk Worthy is coming up a week from Saturday. It's hard to believe it's coming up here real soon, but it's going to be a big party. Ron's going to be there, which guarantees a big party.
The ladies are not invited to this party.
There's one lady invited.
You know, the other ladies, the ones that go, "Oh my gosh, it's Ron Eastwood." They can't come to this one.
Yeah. I don't know. Are you going to be okay, Ron, without all this awkward, like, you're a boy band or something?
Well, that's still, some of the men will, give me more appropriate recognition.
I don't know. I'd love it if a bunch of guys listening who are coming to Walkworthy would do a lot of, "I love you, Ron Eastwood," like run up to you and, oh. Yeah.
I don't need that.
Well, I know you don't need it, but I think it would be enjoyable.
Dana doesn't need that.
Yeah, right. But Daria, you're going to be there.
I am going to be there.
Aren't you excited to hang out with so many guys? What fun.
I'm excited to pass out free things at the table.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that's nice.
Why did you grimace, Lauren, when I said, "Aren't you excited to hang out with so many guys"? Why did you grimace?
I did.
Grimace is a character from McDonald's.
It's really no different than our day-to-day lives. I mean, Lauren and I are the only two women in this office on a regular basis.
True. And if one of us gone,
it's every woman for herself.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yes, please.
But I tell you what, there is perfect balance in the force right now between men and women.
Correct.
Look at
us.
This moment right now, as soon as the show ends and other people start showing up, nope.
In fact, if you look at the amount of womanhood presented by the sheer force of will here, there may be the scales may be tipped in favor of the women on the show.
If you're talking force of will, we are horribly outnumbered.
I had to say that very carefully because I didn't want it to come out sideways.
I think you did a good job.
Thank you. I could have gone all kinds of wrong.
It could have.
You're a little impressed that I did it well.
I was scared as to what you were about to say.
I was like on the edge of my seat going, how is this going to come out? I know exactly what he's trying to say.
There's so much women here.
How is this going to come out?
A lot of women. Yeah. But Lauren, you're not going to be there. We're going to miss you. That's for sure.
I'll miss you guys. I won't be thinking of you, though.
You're going to be with your girlfriends.
That's right.
The opposite of Walkworthy.
Yes.
Sounds much
Send
more
me a
boring.
postcard.
There'd be crying in doilies? Is that what you're doing?
Probably.
Yeah.
That's not true about you.
No, it's
I mean, you cry like anybody else, but that's not how you have a girls' weekend.
I shared with the team, we have a shared note in our notes app of all the things we have to discuss. We just add things to it so we don't forget to talk about them.
Yeah.
I love that. That is so smart.
But they're all like teases, right?
Yeah. We don't get into the conversation in our text thread. We just put it in our little.
Can you give us a
document.
taste of this? Because this is not something I would do with friends.
Yes, our husband's work personas.
Is one of your
Yeah,
props.
like how they're different at home. I mean, at work versus home.
Oh.
Because all of our husbands either work from home or have a lot of time working from home.
And so you all are going to share in the caricature of the husband that you get to experience. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. My kids are convinced that I'm different at work.
Yes, everybody is.
Well, I don't know. Are you convinced of that, Ron?
I must be. I mean, if
I don't
they
think
say
you are.
everyone is, but I don't feel like I'm any different.
Well, we'd have to get Dana's opinion.
Yes.
Well,
because she has plenty of them.
I love that you have prompts for that. That's actually really a fun idea. I'm not certain I would do that with a group of guys. Like if I suggested this, I've been trying to get this group of guys together that I was friends with when I was a kid, and none of them will commit to anything. It's just awkward. But if I could get together with them, and I suggested we have a shared note with discussion topics. Notice Ron's response already. They'd be like, "What's wrong with you, Brian?"
I just pulled it up. One of them is Chesney's van update because she's having some troubles with her car.
And you
like
want to just hear all the
over
stories.
and over again, like lots of struggles.
Oh, man.
And then Trey and Ellis allergy update one of my friends wrote. So that was cute.
Yeah, when you're like, well, how much time you got?
Exactly.
Well, that's what Lauren will be doing. We may have to put a picture up of you at Walkworthy and all the
You don't need
breaks.
to do that. I mean, it'll be there on like our Mornings with Brian promo materials. So
I got all your promo photos.
no, you don't have all of my promo photos. You have embarrassing photos.
You also don't have the authority to tell anybody what to put on the screen.
Got them.
Wow.
Anyway,
Tag team there.
like I said, force of will.
Right.
So, Walkworthy Men's Conference coming up a week from Saturday, Canton Baptist Temple. Guys, you got to get your tickets before it's too late. It's going to be wonderful to hear preaching and teaching from Pastor Mike Frazier. Pastor Paul Canning is coming in from Houston from Power Walk Ministries. And then Pastor Rodney Maiden's our closer this year. And
That's exciting.
yeah, last time he did that, I was afraid the building was going to come down. It was like the walls of Jericho or something. Or
Yeah.
there was no stomping in that.
I was
though.
about to say there was stomping.
I thought it was just horn blowing.
Oh, I thought you meant at Walkworthy.
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about Jericho.
Oh,
It was
march.
singing and marching and horn playing. I
Yeah.
don't know that they
I don't
might
know
have
about
stomped.
stomping. Who knows?
Bring your trumpets, guys. I don't know. I have a
Yeah.
broken one at home from my daughter.
Yeah,
But
you bring it.
It would
should.
would be similar to like at a Cavs game when it's real close and they start doing "We Will Rock You" and everybody's stomp, stomp, clap, stomp, stomp, clap.
yeah, watch out.
Except there wasn't in sync. It was just, whatever.
Nor was there in sync.
No,
Yeah.
Justin
They
Timberlake was
weren't
not
there.
alive yet.
Okay, so get your tickets. A couple of ways to do it. I'd recommend texting the word walk to 440-546-2255. Text walk to 440-546-2255. And then you could also just go to moodyconferences.com. moodyconferences.com, great place to go. It's one of the first link you can get to, get all the information. But
You can
buy
get
those
live
tickets.
stream tickets too if
Yeah.
you're too far or you have to work and so you want to watch it later. Anything. Get a live stream ticket.
And there's a group discount if you have a group
Yes.
of men coming.
Groups of 10 or more, $5 off each ticket.
So let's do this, guys. Text WALK to 440-546-2255.
I love the thought of that live stream, time shifting it. Because if you do have a job where you have to work Saturday or a good portion of the day and it just doesn't work out for you to get to Canton, you can actually watch it. Maybe Sunday would be your day.
Yeah.
You get home from church, open up the live stream and enjoy the three messages as well as the conference or the panel.
See, there you go. Let's do it, guys. Now, shifting gears slightly, Lauren has joined a club with us that it's a milestone. You know, you turn 15 and a half in Ohio, you get your permit, your learner's permit. Or
Yeah.
I think that's right. I
Yeah.
should note this. I've had a bunch
Yes,
of
that's
kids do.
correct.
And then 16, you get your license. 18, you get to vote. We're Christians. We'll skip forward. 25, you can rent a car.
Yeah. That 21 thing.
Yeah,
forget what that is.
And then now Lauren has entered the "my doctor is older than me" milestone.
younger.
Than me milestone. My doctor is younger than me milestone.
Oh,
Yeah.
already.
That's a big moment.
Yeah.
Already.
Can't be too sure, but I'm pretty sure. He's
well,
younger than me.
You're only 31 though, so I feel like the odds of you finding a doctor younger than you are
did it.
not high.
Right, because the doctor has to have his bachelor's, which is probably puts him
Maybe
at
he's
22.
smart. Maybe he went to college.
Well, I
when
hope
he
he's
was
smart.
16.
He's a
Hauser.
doctor.
You're convinced your new doctor is younger than you.
I think so.
So did you call him son?
No.
Hey there, son. Is your mom here? Is she here for the exam?
No.
What are the feels?
I just feel like I'm getting old.
It is one of the first
like,
times you
oh.
get pushed into this zone, and it's like, excuse me.
I didn't expect this, yeah.
Are you in
Because for my whole
school?
life, they've always been older than me.
Yeah, like usually a lot older.
Yes.
And that brings comfort. It's like, because with age comes experience. Suddenly you're like, do you need a textbook with you? Are you okay? Should we?
I've had this body longer than you've been alive. Don't tell me what to do with it.
Yeah. It's a little weird. Did Eddie laugh at you? I could see him going, haha, loser.
No, I don't think so. Because he's older than me. So what's he going to say?
So he has a doctor that's younger than him.
I don't think so. I suggested he go to this doctor as well.
Oh.
So you're even or because you liked him?
Because I liked him.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Young people these days, huh? They're great doctors.
Yes. They still have to go to school just like everybody else.
Right.
Yeah, you're getting there, Lauren. Ron, how did you work through this zone? Give her some advice.
You just roll over and accept it.
Sometimes literally.
Yeah, when I went to the dermatologist the last time, she came in, and I'm thinking, are you out of high school? And then she calls her assistant, who's a nurse or a PA or whatever, and it's like, okay, now we're getting junior hires in this business.
Oh, no.
It was like, man, how can this be? But I have confidence in the state of Ohio's licensing.
That's right.
That they would not let a junior high student inspect my body for whatever.
Ron, in the late 80s, one Douglas Hauser, a.k.a. Doogie Hauser, he was able to practice medicine at about 16. So you never know.
Yes, but only on TV.
Are you sure?
Well, I never saw him outside of that. So,
all right. Well, it is 6:15. We've got more coming up. Not too far away from a conversation with Linda Uveges, CEO of City Mission. Lots more to come here on Mornings with Brian.
Heritage Classical.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
618 WCRF. I got an update here, a little stack of stories, just so you all know the latest that's the happening with the young peoples.
Okay.
I think you're the last person to know that.
Yeah.
Keep your hip hop happening. Well, this all comes from Ron Eastwood.
Yeah, Ron knows
Exactly.
more about
So you're the last
the
to
young
know.
people than you do.
So thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
I wasn't familiar with this idea, but there is something called rage baiting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to try
Wow.
to? You knew this, Ron?
I didn't until I saw that story, but these two are right on it.
Yeah, you'd like, post something with the intention of making people mad. Like, you know it's going to make people mad.
Like if something's like wrong in a video or something, like, oh, what's wrong with this? I don't see that this person did anything wrong. And then, of course, all the comments like, what are you talking about? And everyone gets mad.
Yeah, and they make money on this
Yes.
because they get views. And so there's a lady, Winta Zissou. Wow,
I don't
you guys
know.
are
I don't
not
know.
cool.
Sorry, I don't
No.
know everyone on the internet.
Well, you are getting older. I mean, your doctor's
Yeah.
younger than you.
Young doctor.
So Winta, she gets a lot of rage baiting money for being too pretty.
So they're mad at her for being pretty?
So
Well,
she
she's-
posts videos of her life in New York City as a model, and the biggest problem she has is people rage posting about how pretty she is.
Is it
Sad.
that she's saying she's so pretty and that's her problem? Or
So they're
is
mad
it,
at her for
yeah.
being conceited?
No, I think people get angry and they post hateful comments because
Oh, that's sad.
I guess she's real pretty. Although there's something, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and we're
Yes,
all
it is.
beautiful because we're made in God's image.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. But like sometimes the model thing, you just go, really? That's,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm trying to be gentle here.
I've
but-
seen some models walking runways that I think, wow.
Moving on.
Moving on. Here we go. Dating apps, they're not cool anymore.
Good.
Yeah, I think we've kind of started to see that.
You knew about this.
I think so.
I mean,
think
not
we've-
that you haven't experienced recently.
No.
But
I think we've
No.
talked about this on the show about how they're
Yeah.
kind of on the way
dating
out.
out.
yeah, well, they're out. They're not cool anymore. I feel bad for all those companies that started that because people are meeting each other in different ways now. Are you all familiar with this? We're all married, so it's not like we have to know this.
I don't know. You haven't said it, so I don't know if I'm familiar.
Well, I just thought
Got him.
since you're hip and happening, you would just know.
That I read
Got her.
minds.
No.
Anyway, the most common way for people to find love now is through shared interests and hobbies, like apps where you can, this one couple, Nate and Jess, developed a long-distance relationship playing World of Warcraft. Doesn't that sound romantic?
If you like video games.
I don't know what that is, though, World of War. It sounds very violent.
It's one of those fantasy where your characters, I don't know the game
You're an elf.
particularly, but yeah, I think it's elves and dwarves and
But they fell in love as elves and dwarves, I guess, and then in real life fell in
That's
love,
nice.
too. And it's not just gaming. People meet through, like, fitness apps, like Strava?
Not familiar
know
with
it.
that one.
None of us are.
And no, we're not on the fitness apps.
No, I am, and I don't know that one.
And, like, I guess they meet on social media DMs.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. You just reach out to somebody random?
I don't have any. I was hoping you guys would know.
No clue.
yeah, because I would think, a DM would be to someone who you know. If I'm not exactly sure how you would go about finding
Maybe a
People-
friend of a friend?
that could
Something
be
like that.
would show up. But how do you start that? Because I get those spammers who are like, "Hi, your post seems so
Forgive me
interesting
for
to
intruding.
Yes,
And then I'm
yes.
going to intrude upon your life.
Yeah. Those are so weird. I'm glad it's not just Ron and me that get those.
Who's falling for those? And then if you click on their profile, it's like 3 pictures and they created their account yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, and someone falls for it. I don't know how you fall for that, but yeah, people do. People fall for that. So I guess it's one more day. I'm glad I don't have to worry about online dating. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
You do. Okay, final one that I have for you today. There's this new thing that Ron sent to me, and I took a look at it because deep fakes are getting even better. Now, for the uninitiated, a deep fake would be you see a video and you're like, wow, I can't believe Lauren said this. But it wasn't her.
It was AI.
It was AI using like a photograph of her, maybe a recording of her voice.
They're
making
getting
a
very
deepfake.
convincing. It's quite scary, actually.
I've said a lot of words on the internet, so you can piece them all together. Make me say something I didn't say.
Well, and so TikTok owner ByteDance, out of China, obviously, built an AI tool that makes videos of people talking and singing and dancing from a single photo. OmniHuman can take an image of a
Omni-human. I don't like this name.
Right. They take an image and they bring it to life. And so, like, an example that Ron sent me was they brought a picture of Albert Einstein to life. Now, they must not realize that when he speaks English, there would be a German accent. That was their only flaw. Like, it's watching some guy, it sounds like me. It's like, no, I don't think he would have sounded like that. But it was convincing. Like, I'm telling you guys, I watched it. I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw a video of this girl texting with her grandmother, and she was convinced that this celebrity had sang this like beautiful song. And she was like, Grandma, that's AI. And she goes, no, I just saw it. I just watched the video. And she's like, I know it's really confusing, but that's not real.
Yeah, it's getting even more frustrating for me with movie trailers. Like, there was one, there was a big one going around about Godfather Part 4 starring Sylvester Stallone.
Okay, yeah.
And the people were like, oh, this is going to be so great. And he posted like, haha, this is great. I'm not doing this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, so they made a fake trailer.
Yeah.
An AI trailer. Wow.
And there's fake movie trailers all over the place.
Yeah, my friend sent me one for Princess Diaries 3.
Yes.
And I said, girl, that's AI. That's not real.
I think a couple months ago, Brian, you and I were having a debate on whether there was a Popeye movie coming out. Like, we couldn't, like, there was like evidence or something, but we couldn't find like proof, and we were so confused.
I think The Rock was going to be Popeye.
Yeah, or something like
Rock
that.
was going to be Popeye.
Which is all messed up because we all know Popeye has bigger forearms than biceps. So I don't know how they're going to do that. But I'm not kidding. Like, there was one about like a live action Shrek. No. Not going to be a thing.
Ooh.
And so
I
now
think I want to see that.
I get so excited I used to get excited about teaser trailers and stuff where way in advance you get something. I'm like, oh, this will be so great. And now I skip them because I don't even know if it's true.
Correct.
I don't even know how to figure out if it's true.
Yeah, with the Princess Diaries 3 one, you look it up, it's not even in production. So there's no way they have these clips of nothing that's happened yet.
But they do it somehow. The other one that got me years ago was there was a rumor going around about a Friends reunion. Obviously before
the actual
one.
Right, but they're going to get back together and do a show.
Yeah.
And they had clips and put it together, and I'm telling you, it's pretty good. Because all the actors had been in separate productions, and they could make this thing look real. So I don't know. I guess real life is reduced to just real life.
Yeah.
You can't trust anything you see online anymore.
Are you real right now, Lauren?
I think so.
Maybe it's all the Matrix. Final one, another AI for you. Pickle AI.
Huh?
It's Pickle AI, but it's not making fake pickles. It's making a fake you. Creates an AI body double to sit in for you on your Zoom and Teams meetings.
Oh, wow.
Record a 5-minute video of yourself, upload it, and let AI train your digital clone. Plan starts at $24 a month.
Who's that desperate to get out of a meeting?
I think every company, though, has one of those meetings that really could be covered by an email.
Oh, yes.
It's just management would like everyone to know that they're still working very hard, and everyone has to attend, and no one has to speak. You're laughing, Rod, because you know there are people, not us.
No.
But there are people who will do this.
So this AI, it'll like move every once in a while. It's a video of you like moving every once in a while,
Yeah.
maybe scratching your eyebrow.
What if it asks you a question?
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
And does like the AI repeat back the cliff notes of the meeting? Like, what if there was something important that you missed?
Now, see, that would be the key.
Well, Ron did have AI that was following all of our meetings for months.
Yeah.
That took notes for him.
We couldn't get
Yes.
rid of it.
And
What
I
was
couldn't
it
get to the notes.
it was supposed to be some service that would transcribe them,
Yeah, right.
but it would show up in our meetings. We're
Yeah,
like,
it would
"Hey,
always
who's
say like
this?"
someone's waiting in the lobby, and you click on it, and it was like Otter AI or whatever.
It was Firefly, I think.
You couldn't stop it.
It's like, oh, Firefly's here. Hardest working employee in the building.
But I think there are companies, right, that have meetings where your job is to listen with your mic off. Like, no one's going to call on you.
Yeah, probably there's some.
It depends on the meeting.
Is this going to have to force companies to rethink how they do meetings?
Maybe.
Maybe.
If it becomes enough of a problem.
Everyone has to say hi when you first get on.
Well, that'll be easy to fix with deepfake. Right.
Okay,
and,
then
and
maybe it's a
AI.
secret password, Brian. I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing too, where when I went for the Experience Moody event, they're changing how they do attendance for chapel.
Uh-huh.
Because students are all required to go to chapel.
Right.
And before it was
Fob and Rob.
right.
You
There's
fob
these
in and then run away.
sensors. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now there are there's an app and there's a real-time code that pops up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it only works if you're in the physical proximity of the chapel service. Like they're having to get very
Yeah, because it used to be there was clipboards in the chapel with paper, and you had to go find your name and scratch it off. It'd be like by alphabet or whatever, and scratch it off.
and there was an alliteration for that too. It
Scratch
was-
and dash.
There you go.
And then we got fobs, so you have to like fob in with your key fob to show that you're there. And then it was fob and Rob.
Then there was like a swipe and flight, or
Maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, maybe it's a good thing that some places will have to rethink how they do meetings, right?
Hopefully they rethink if they do meetings and just decide, this could be an email. I don't have to pontificate to the entirety of the company.
Yeah.
I could just send an email.
Because if you could have an entire employee base that is all fake at your meeting and like have a successful meeting in your mind, I mean, obviously this is not a necessary thing for
Right.
anybody. So watch out. There could be a pickle AI body double of Lauren Cuevas at your next meeting. She would never do that.
I'd make it wave every once in a while.
And pretty soon someone's like, why does the Lord
Why-
wave every 3 minutes? Seems pretty on the regular here. All right, 6:30 coming up in just a minute. Our good friend Linda Uveges, CEO of City Mission, wants to share some new statistics about Ohio kids being ready for school.
Hi, my name is Joe Abraham, and this is Pause for Prayer. A blessed 2025 to you all. As a fellowship, we together took on the challenge to read through the whole Bible in a year. As part of the preaching team, we shared whatever landed on that given Sunday. At times, that was very difficult. Setting a proper context, addressing the historical background, and then using the remaining time to develop the preached scriptures. Sometimes a journey through the Bible had daily extensive readings, leaving whole books out of the pulpit. Weird. It seemed we're in the difficult minor prophets forever. At the year's final elders meeting, each man was asked what struck him on his consuming readings. For me, that was easy. You want to engage people this year? Talk about suffering. Let's pause today and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we bless your name and thank you that you remain firmly seated as a sovereign God over all the affairs of the world. Thank you for your holy word, which allows us to cope with and understand life from a vertical perspective, not merely a horizontal one, as many people struggle with. Thank you that the one who began it all will also bring things to a kingdom culmination. We're one day closer. Suffering can be a hard thing to understand. May we be good listeners and examples as we respond to the thoughts from others. Give us wisdom to answer from the Word of God as challenging questions arise from those concerned. That includes both believers and unbelievers alike. Suffering does not refute the love of Christ, and it never closes his ears as we cry out to him in crisis prayer. Make us prayer warriors and even humble evangelists to others as we progress through the new year. Jesus, no one understands suffering better than you. Not only were you persecuted physically for us, but you who knew no sin became sin on our behalf so that we might become the righteousness of God. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Do you have a heart for those with disabilities? With Moody's new certificate program, you can gain the biblical perspective and practical skills you need to answer that call on your heart. This Chicago on-campus or online course includes classes like studying and teaching the Bible, special needs children and family ministry, and engaging disability in the church. If God has placed this caring in your heart, learn more and apply at moody.edu/disability. moody.edu/disability.
Hey, my name is Brant Hansen, and I have a tough job. I have 30 seconds to tell you about the most beautiful Jesus-shaped thing I've ever seen in my life, and now more like 22 seconds, but it's Cure International Children's Hospitals. They do surgeries by the thousands every year, all in the name of Jesus. Tens of thousands become Christians every year in these hospitals. Imagine proclaiming the kingdom and healing the sick. It's that good. Check it out. There's nothing like it. More people need to know about this. It's cure.org/Moody, cure.org/Moody.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland. Looking at today's issues through a biblical perspective.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
WCRF, home of the Walk Worthy Men's Conference. Guys, get your tickets today. The conference is a week from Saturday at Canton Baptist Temple. Text WALK to get your tickets to 440-546-2255. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. And she's back. We love having her here. She's CEO of City Mission, Linda Uveges. Welcome back, my friend.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Doing great. We love what you all do, and we love your updates. And it looks like the state of Ohio has some, is it kindergarten readiness statistics for us?
Yes. You know, as I was thinking about this, why do we care about this? Well, of course, because I'm a resident of Ohio and we care about our children. but also at the city mission, especially at our Laura's Home campus, we serve women and children. So this is always of interest to us and concern as we care for those that are most vulnerable in our community. And certainly these new reports out that only 2 out of 3, or less than 2 out of 3 kids aren't ready for kindergarten. And that was just really concerning to me as a mom, as a grandma, and also as a resident of Ohio and at the city mission.
Well, now some people might say, well, clearly this demonstrates a parenting problem in Cleveland. Is that the conclusion you would draw?
Oh, no, I wouldn't draw that conclusion. There are many factors, and this report really focuses on 4 specific areas that boost motor, like boost brain development for children. And so they're looking at the assessment looks at math, language, literacy, social development, and physical and motor development. This isn't a parent issue. This is across the board here in Ohio.
So what does that look like when you see it lived out in Laura's home, where a kid might, get to the age of kindergarten and not yet have the necessary skills? How does that happen?
Right. So what we have experienced is when children come to Laura's home at the city mission, many times they've gone from school to school to school because of crisis. They are there's instability in the home where the mom is really seeking to find the help that she needs. But when she doesn't have stable housing, affordable housing, how can she possibly provide those things that she needs for her children as far as education goes? So oftentimes when we have a new family come to us, and it might be October, and already that child has been in 3 different school districts. So you think about how can that child receive the services that they need, or how can they have the support that is needed and necessary for growth. And the big deal is preschool and childcare has become so expensive. Yeah. It is very difficult for a single mom to be able to provide the necessary education and skill development while not being able to afford it and supporting her family.
And I can picture someone saying, yeah, I understand what you're saying, Linda, but why doesn't this mom just read to her kid more? Read to your kid. What are you doing?
Oh, well, she's trying.
It's not me saying that. Don't worry.
I know. She's trying to work, to be able to pay the rent, to put food on the table. We know that housing is mostly out of reach for women who are working, and the average wage for a mom, she must make at least $21.31 an hour to be able to afford just a 2-bedroom apartment. And even with that, she has to work close to 60 to 80 hours a week to be able to make that work. So where do you have time to sit down and read a book? And not that they don't want to, it's so challenging to be able to just provide those basic needs of food and shelter and safety.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's this misconception of those who are experiencing poverty. They're apathetic, that they're just like, whatever, I'll just do this job. Point A to point B, kids get away from me. Can you share with us a mom's heart that's living in crisis or in poverty?
Yes, and Brian, I always love that we have this conversation and bring up this point of the myths and the assumptions that people make about those experiencing homelessness or in poverty. So my experience, and I've been at the mission for over 20 years, and the moms that I encounter, They are seeking help for their children. They want to be connected to the resources. They are desperately trying to make ends meet as a mom, and they love their children. And when they come to Laura's home, oftentimes they're a bit fearful. They don't know us or whoever's at that front desk doing the intake, and they're mostly concerned, is this place safe for my children? Yeah. And will this be a good place where we can start over again? So these moms, these individuals are desperately trying to find the help that they need. Why else would they be coming to us? Why else would they be saying, I am willing to commit to this structured program to really make a difference in my family's life?
Yeah, I think we need to have a big shift in the American church in terms of how we view poverty, because what we've developed is something quite different than what history would tell us. And, by the way, what Scripture would tell us. It's 6:45. We're up against a quick break here. We have our good friend Linda Uveges with us here on Mornings with Brian on WCRF. She's CEO of City Mission. We'll continue talking about not just the recent statistics about Ohio kids and their kindergarten readiness, but then what we can do about it.
Prayer. It's conversation between you and God. It's not a last resort. It's a first line of defense. Prayer is one of the most important actions we can take to end abortion and support the women and men on the front lines of helping people choose life. Not sure how to pray about the abortion issue? CareNet's free devotional series, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life, shares stories from the front lines of CareNet's pro-life ministry and guides you in daily prayer for those who are at risk for choosing abortion. Every day in your inbox, you'll discover inspiring, true stories of how God is saving unborn lives and giving abundant life to families. And you'll be a part of a special community of believers who are reading and praying along with you. Discover hope, deepen your faith, and become a champion of life. Access your free devotional, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life at care-net.org/Moody. care-net.org/Moody.
Moody Radio is on the air thanks to support from our listeners and businesses like Fellowship Home Loans. They'll talk about the numbers as well as your hopes, dreams, and the market's reality. Home is where the heart is. It's where families grow and where dreams are born. More information is at 800-804-7283. That's 800-804-SAVE or fellowshiphomeloans.com. Welcome home.
They say family knows you best. Here's Brian's older brother with a message for you.
I always knew my little brother had the gift of gab, and he proves it to you every morning.
It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
A teens community is on Snapchat or on TikTok. And so how would you go about having both? I would want my child to have their community. I don't want them to feel left out. I want them to feel like they're connected. But also, there is so much harm in social media. How can we have both?
Honestly, when you give your child Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is you're going to give them in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, whenever you're going to do that, does that automatically, magically make them so happy and so loved? I mean, it really, truly, if we're honest, it does the opposite, that all of a sudden now it opens up this whole world of oh my word, I thought I was good looking, but now I see a gazillion people who are better looking than me. Is that trait of drama and pain and constantly measuring themselves, is that pain worth?
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio, Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
651 WCRF, some troubling statistics out from the state of Ohio as the percentage of children demonstrating kindergarten readiness fell from 41.9% in 2020-2021 to 36.5%. We're seeing a really troubling trend here. And as we're talking with our friend Linda Uveges, CEO of City Mission, one of the big contributing factors to this is the number of children living in poverty in the city of Cleveland and in the state of Ohio. I know we've talked about this before, but generally speaking, we're seeing more and more kids in poverty now too, right?
Yes, we are. In fact, this report says nearly 1 in 5 age 0 to 5 live in poverty.
Yeah.
Well, that's about 20%. However, in Cleveland, it's 50% that live in poverty. Children 0 to 5 are living in poverty. That's about 35,000 children just in the city of Cleveland. So yes, and we know that kindergarten readiness is a key indicator, a critical predictor for long-term success. And that's part of what this report says, that children who start school ready are more likely to succeed in math, in reading, graduate high school, have secure and stable employment. So this is not just, we're not thinking short-sighted, we're thinking long-term. And this will set up a child for success. And, talking about when we invest in high-quality learning experiences, that will be the key to success. And also this report says, which we experience every day, is that they don't have access to those high-quality childcare or daycare centers or preschool centers because they are living in poverty and struggling to make ends meet. So without those opportunities for the children, that is a big indicator for the success of their future.
Now, we know City Mission is doing great work with those living in crisis and experiencing poverty and homelessness, but you're not doing it just because you guys are like, oh, hey, it's a great idea, we should do this. As I understand it, the scriptures guide you deeply in this. Talk to us about how you understand how the Lord calls us to care for the poor.
Absolutely. We believe that everyone is made in the image of God and has dignity, right? So we operate first from there. We are all made in the image of God, and God has called us to serve those in our community, those who are underserved, those who are struggling in poverty, in poor generational poverty, and all individuals who need that help. And I've always said that those who come through our doors, to me, they are incredibly brave individuals, because it is not easy to ask for help. But that is what God has called us to do in our community. And one thing I believe strongly in is that, yes, there's this problem, and yes, this is the facts of what we see, but we need to be part of the solution. God has called us to serve and to glorify Him in that process. So we are wanting and desire and will be a part of the solution for our children that we get to serve at Laura's Home.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting if you look at the history of the church and even the New Testament, when we look at the Acts of the Apostles and in the various epistles, like caring for the poor was a primary function of the church. Mm-hmm. Like throughout much of world history, we did not have social safety nets in forms of like Social Security and disability and things like that. So we did that, and we didn't do it begrudgingly as a church. And I wonder if it's something we need to rediscover as costs keep increasing. I mean, it is virtually impossible to afford daycare right now for someone experiencing poverty, isn't it?
Right. I would say even for I have children who have their children and trying to figure out and to afford childcare. Yeah. It is not easy for those who have two incomes and have a spouse. So no, it's challenging for everyone. And so, yes, we have to rely on the church. We can't do it alone. We're not meant to do this alone. The city mission relies on the support of the churches, and that comes in volunteer opportunities and coming in and reading to a child or serving a meal, or also financially. Of course, that's wonderful, but we need the church. That is our responsibility, and we are just we want churches to come alongside of us, and we come alongside of them. This is not something we want to do alone or can do alone.
Well, that's the perfect moment to shift towards how folks can help out. Because, it is a difficult economy right now. People may not have necessarily the dollars to donate. And if they do, I'm sure you'll take them. But you have volunteer opportunities and such. How can folks learn more?
Yeah, we sure do. And just go to our website, thecitymission.org, and we have a list of all the ways that you can help. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's, hey, we can do a diaper drive, or our church can provide some meals, or maybe we can, do some, get formula or anything that would be helpful to who we serve at the mission. And volunteering is critical. Last year we added up all the hours of our volunteers, and it translated into over $350,000 worth of dollars that we did not have to pay. And so we rely on those volunteers. Come alongside. As you know, that's how I started at the mission as a volunteer, and it changed my life. And I haven't left.
Yeah, and I always love an organization where you can start as a volunteer and become the CEO. So that's pretty fantastic. So go to thecitymission.org, thecitymission.org. Linda Uveges is the CEO. Thank you so much, Linda, for your time and your passion. We just love what you all do and are grateful for this partnership.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for caring so deeply about our community and what you do.
You bet. It's 6:58 now. We're up against Ron's news in just a minute, but I can't skip the chance here on WCRF to share one of my favorite passages of Scripture. It's one of those where when I share this with people, oftentimes I see them go, that's not there. Honestly, I've had pastors look at me and say that. I guess it's just where you're pointing your emphasis in a particular chapter. So Galatians, and Lauren's like, here we go. She's like, you get your Bible?
No, I don't. I will.
Oh, I thought you were checking. I don't know about this, Brian. I'm already skeptical. Galatians 2. So it's a section where Paul went back to Jerusalem, and he went with Barnabas and Titus because he wanted to submit himself before the pillars of the church, Peter and James and John. And he said, I wanted to make sure that we were in agreement for fear that all my efforts had been wasted and I was running the race for nothing. Like he was like, I want to be sure that we're all in one accord here theologically, and that I will get a blessing in terms of like my work with the Gentiles. So they met for a long time and hung out and like talked and did their whole thing. And then you get to Galatians 2:9. It says, in fact, James, Peter, and John, who were known as pillars of the church, recognized the gift God had given me, and they accepted Barnabas and me as their co-workers. They encourage us to keep preaching to the Gentiles while they continue to do their work with the Jews. Their only suggestion was, now, before I share it with you, again, meets for a long time, go over all the theology. Everything's perfect. It's fine. They only had one suggestion for Paul before they sent him back out, and it was to keep on helping the poor. Comma, he writes, which I've always been eager to do. Like he's saying, they told me one thing. I just want you all to know that I've already been very eager to do this. It's very important to me that I care for the poor. And they only gave me one suggestion, which they knew I was already doing, but it was that important. They had to say it again. Hey, keep it up. Don't forget the poor. I've told people that when they go, that's not there. Because I don't think we actually get to that portion. What we talk about instead is the, oh yeah, he went and submitted themselves and they were happy. Like that passion for the poor is something I think we've lost sight of. So much so that James, Peter, and John would give that direction to Paul knowing he already cares about it. That's how we ought to feel about the poor. It's 7:01 on WCRF.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland. WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
The top official at the Social Security Administration is stepping down after a disagreement with the Department of Government Efficiency. It's 7:02. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Michelle King resigned after refusing a request from DOJ to access sensitive government records at the agency. The information reportedly dealt with Americans' bank info, Social Security numbers, marital status, and date of birth. The city of Akron is activating the Summit Lake Community Center as a warming center for folks needing to escape the cold this week. The city of Cleveland is continuing to offer the Michael Zone Rec Center, the Lonnie Burton Rec Center, the Collinwood Rec Center, and the Zelma George Rec Centers as warming centers for those needing an escape from the cold in the Cleveland area. And Vivek Ramaswamy is expected to launch his run for governor next week. The former Republican presidential candidate filed campaign paperwork over the weekend. In sports, the NFL offseason is officially here. Teams can begin to place franchise tags on players, but neither the Browns nor the Steelers are expected to tag any of their players. Our Moody Radio forecast: partly cloudy with highs around 13 degrees. Now, the wind chill values could make it feel as low as 11 below this morning. So I've got to remind you, make sure you cover any exposed skin. Be sure you have gloves before you head out, for example. At last check, flurries and 7 degrees in Cleveland, 5 degrees Akron and Canton. It is clear and 1 degree in Mansfield.
It's time for your moron moment.
Do you ever get sick of seeing ads for things that you have no interest in? In Google's Ad Center, you can browse everything Google knows about you and delete it if you want, block ads that you don't like, and adjust the categories you see. If you have to see some ads in order to get your free social media, they might as well be relevant to you. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:04 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Divine Studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Mornings with Brian, WCRF. All right, so the recipe for happiness. Aristotle claimed he figured it out in the ancient world. What's the recipe for happiness if you guys were to be asked to make it?
Oh my gosh. Happiness?
Yeah. And now I know as Christians, like, blah, blah, blah. We're not looking to be happy here.
Right.
But generally speaking, in society, if you want to create happiness in someone's life, what is the recipe to make it?
It's difficult because I'm trying to think of like the conditions, the setting, like
lottery plus Ron equals
cookies
happiness.
and
Cookies and chocolate. A day off and sunshine.
Yeah. Ooh, I do love
Family.
sunshine.
But
family, very good.
Family could be making you very happy or very unhappy,
depending on who you are.
Yeah.
You know, family plus Jesus equals happiness.
That's right.
And someone else is like, oh, Brian, the recipe is just Jesus. I know, it's true, actually. But Aristotle's recipe was happiness is made of two ingredients, meaning and purpose. Process that. What do you think of it? Do you love it? Hate it?
Meaning and purpose.
I'm having a hard time finding the difference right off the bat between meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Very
meaning.
good. Very good. Lauren Cuevas. You were a good student, even though you didn't
Thank you.
talk in class. Okay, so meaning and purpose. According to Psychology Today, even though the writer thinks that the recipe is accurate for happiness, and we're going to evaluate this together, what they're saying here is that meaning is our perception of the past.
Okay.
So to form one's vision for meaning, it all has to do with the stories we tell ourselves about the past. It's how we make sense of our lives today. And people tend to fall into two categories. You tell yourself heroic stories of your past, or you tell yourself victim stories about your past. As in your narrative about your life is, not that I am a victim. No one says that. But they're like, oh gosh, I'm not good enough. I just keep failing. And so that person would ultimately be unhappy and would have a negative view of their own meaning.
Right. Their stories all filled with, I could have,
right,
except for this. I could have been president of the United States, except Ronald Reagan ran ahead of me, and since he already was Ronald, nobody would recognize me.
Can't have two Rons.
Yeah.
Can't have two Ron presidents.
And now people who tell themselves heroic stories, what they base, it's not that they're the hero of every story, but what they're saying is that they look back at their struggles or traumas and they see that they overcame them. Therefore, that's a hero story. Like,
Right.
I made it. I conquered. And so, again, meaning all about perception of the past. Purpose, according to Psychology Today, is all about the present and the future. It's all about action. It's about what
Where
we
you're
do with the
going.
time we have, like where we're headed. So so Aristotle would be saying your view of your past and your vision for your future determines happiness. What do you think?
I don't like it.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Wow. Boy, Lauren raises her hand. Aristotle, you're dumb.
Yes.
Why don't you like it?
I think you and I have talked about before that I'm not a super goals, like future. I have this long drawn out plan of where I want to be in my life. I just don't really think that way. I don't have like, I want to be the CEO of this place.
You're not a dreamer.
No. And so for me, I don't draw my happiness of like, this is where I'm going. These are my plans. I'm not finding my happiness in what my plans are and where I'm headed. And I also don't find my happiness in things that happened in the past because they're from the past. I feel like your happiness is something that's happening currently.
Yes. Good point.
Wait, say that again.
Like he's saying you look at your past to find your happiness, but my past it's done. I can't relive it. I can't do it again. So why am I drawing my happiness from my past? Happiness would be what's happening right now. I feel like happiness is more fleeting than like a steady current of joy.
Totally agree. And this is where I wanted to chat about this because of how Christ really does change these types of things for us. But in some sense, I think Christians would still have a narrative of their past, their meaning.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's biblical is not the point. Like, how do they view their struggles? It sounds to me like you don't struggle with having a heroic view of your past. Not that you're, Queen Lauren conquering the world here, but you had struggles and they've been overcome.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you live a life in Christ, it's not really about you anymore. So you really shouldn't have a heroic view of yourself because you really didn't do anything.
Right.
I'm also not sure that meaning is the past. I see it more as like, what am I doing now that has value?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if I did something that was valuable 5 years ago if I'm doing nothing with my life now. Nothing that matters, nothing that impacts anybody.
And psychologists would say that's purpose.
And I would disagree.
With psychology. I got it. That's fair. No, I mean, and I wasn't sure how I felt about this either, because one of the things he said is with this formula, if you buy into it, people get stuck because they think having a strong purpose is enough. Like if you can just set big goals and achieve them and conquer those goals in the future, it's going to make you feel better in the present. But the problem is if somebody has this victim narrative in their past, they're going to feel their accomplishments towards their purpose will ultimately feel empty.
And I agree with Lauren, even if you have like this quote unquote heroic view of yourself, I think if you're always looking to the past, I think you're missing the point. I think if you're going through a hard time now, you can look back and say, I've overcome this, I can overcome this other thing. But I don't think we should be drawing our sense of meaning from things that are behind us.
And this is almost reminiscent of what you were talking about yesterday, Daria, that just not that I hadn't heard of it, but I hadn't thought about it much. The manifestation, people who are like calling out to the ether to will money in their bank account. It just seems so like, huh? Life is so Ecclesiastes. Like when you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, he just nails it about how, the rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous, the wicked prosper, the good die young. It's just like, how do you end up looking at yourself and going, I've done it and I'm going to do it again? Who lives like that? Are they delusional?
It's very me-focused. It's navel gazing.
And who can do the navel gazing and have that hero narrative? Like, are there people?
A lot of people.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
I think that's our...
Are they lying to themselves?
No, I think that's our disposition as sinful people, is to look at ourselves and say, look at me, look at me. I think that's our disposition.
So it's my faith in Christ that's clouding my judgment on this.
Yeah.
Possibly. Because I think if we were honest with ourselves, we'd all look back and, you'd see some stuff that was good, but you'd see a lot of, wow, I screwed that up.
Yeah, it would be, according to God's truth, it would be mostly, wow, I screwed up. Because I'm a mess.
Yeah, and when you don't have Christ, everything revolves around you, so you're either the victim or the hero, and it's still revolved around you. You're still the center.
Right.
It's not other people centered.
Yeah, and this is, I think, almost the relief of following Christ, is that you don't have to get caught up in this formula of meaning and purpose. Because to me, it's a formula that can't be solved. It reminds me of kind of math problem I hate, a proof in geometry. It's like, bleh, gross. Geometry's so dumb. Ugh. Even though it works great for pool, but whatever. I was thinking about something Ron and I have talked about quite a bit, and we're going to do a little history lesson here because I think this helps us guide us towards what is, for the Christian, our meaning and purpose. Now, the Sunday school answer is Jesus, but I think that for some, that's not something to hang your hat on. Like, what does that mean? Right? So there's something called the Westminster Catechism.
Right.
Did you think I was headed there, Ron? You probably did.
I suspected.
For those who don't know, it's been around for a long time. It was used by English-speaking Presbyterians, some Congregationalists and Baptists. It was written by the Westminster Assembly, which met in 1643 until 1649 during the English Civil War. This is a very old document. It was kind of like, when the church met in Nicaea. Like, they all got together to be like, what do we believe here? What are we about in the English-speaking church? And I think their first point is part of this. And now everyone might have their own answer to this, but when it comes to meaning and purpose, the first question in the Westminster Catechism is, what is the chief and highest end of man? As in, what is your purpose and meaning? And the answer is man's chief and highest end is to glorify God and fully to enjoy him forever.
Mm-hmm. That always made me kind of chuckle.
Why?
Enjoy him forever? I'm to serve God. To enjoy him just sounded so awkward when I first heard that at Geneva College. But no, there is joy in serving Jesus.
Yes. And this is that relational thing. And I love how they summarized it. Like, our goal is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And a life where Christ is at the center is one where you truly can find your meaning and purpose, which is to give him glory forever. And there is enjoyment in a relationship with Christ, because guess what? When you look back at your past, you can see, it's like that silly old poem of Footprints in the Sand. I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. That is how we view our past. And what's our future? To give glory to God. I don't have to wonder what I'm supposed to do. Whatever happens, it's for his glory. And we've been sharing this more recently, and I'm glad we have. But if this is something that seems attractive to you, maybe you're caught up in really a victim narrative of your past, or you're not seeing much hope in your future. Don't worry about Aristotle's formula of meaning and purpose. Worry about the Westminster Catechism, which comes right from Scripture, that our goal is to give God glory and enjoy him forever. That is your meaning and purpose. If you want more information about how to live a life like that and what it means to follow Jesus, it's good news because it's so simple. Just text the word Jesus to 440-546-2255. Text the word Jesus to 440-546-2255. We'll send you back a link that will give you more information about what it truly means to be a follower of Jesus.
Set up your phone or other calendar for Walk Worthy, our annual men's conference on March 1st. Paul Cannings from Power Walk, Mike Frazier from Rejoicing in Truth, and Rodney Maiden from The Edifying Word will be speaking. And don't forget about the fellowship and worship music. We hope to see you again, or for the first time, at Canton Baptist Temple. Whether you want to come in person or via live stream, register at moodyconferences.com or text WALK to us at
440-546-2255.
Pastors have to make tons of decisions, including what to do to meet healthcare needs for themselves and their staff. Christian Healthcare Ministries specializes in making healthcare decisions easy and affordable. Not insurance, but a health cost sharing ministry for over 40 years. CHM opens the door for individuals, families, and yes, pastors to be a part of a biblical way to meet medical bills. Get more information and answers to your questions at chministries.org/Moody. That's chministries.org/Moody.
Hi, I'm Gary Chapman. Marriage is a beautiful journey, but let's be honest, it can be challenging and there's always room to grow. In my new book, A Simple Guide for a Better Marriage, I share stories and insights from my decades of counseling couples. Practical advice like navigating differences, managing in-laws, and strengthening your bond. So join me on the journey.
Get A Simple Guide for a Better Marriage by Gary Chapman today at moodybooks.org or wherever you buy books.
Your day is starting off strong with Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
For your spirit, soul, and body, it's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studios. Good morning from Moody Radio Cleveland. And we not only have Walk Worthy coming up in just a little while here.
Sure.
But we also have our spring share campaign in just a couple weeks.
Oh, yes.
We love some share around here. Now, if you're new to us, it's our just a couple of times a year, we remind you that this is a listener-supported ministry.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of businesses, but also listeners who get together and donate to keep this ministry on the air. And one of the things I like to share every year is a reminder of how long this station has done this. And the story of the generosity of people in Northeast Ohio so many years ago.
Right.
We really are in their debt. So 1958, probably actually 56, 57, there was a group of listeners got together, the Christian Radio Fellowship. And they're like, we need Christian radio in Northeast Ohio. It's a great tool for the gospel. Let's do this. And so they got together and raised money.
Yes, they did.
Enough money to not just fund a station, but to build it and get the licensing from the Federal Communications Commission. And something that's really cool from the FCC is you get to pick your call letters, right, Ron?
Yes.
Just the rule is the letter you use at the beginning, which is a W or a K.
Yes.
And it has to do with whether you're east or west of the Mississippi River, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it can't be a duplicate of one that's already been claimed.
So we're east, so it's W, and then Christian Radio Fellowship, CRF, WCRF. That's where that comes from. Built the station, and we're like, awesome, let's get our AM signal. Sorry, guys, it's full. The AM band is full. You can't have that.
Which may sound funny today, where FM is predominant, but back in the day, FM radio stations were few and far between, and it was the oddball frequency.
Yeah.
Almost flipped from today.
And so we had to kind of shrug. They got together, like, what are we going to do? Like, well, there's this weird FM thing. I guess we could do that. And they got a license to do that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, worked with Moody Bible Institute, said, hey, would you guys like to take on this radio station from the Christian Radio Fellowship? And Moody was like, nah, I don't know.
Because Moody already had one station in Chicago.
Right.
That was all, just the one. But they were successfully programming that.
So people just like you, living in communities where you live, said, oh, yeah, you're not sure? We're going to raise 2 years of funding and come back to you and say, you think there's actually support for this? Now you want to buy it? They were nicer than that, but that's kind of the gist
Brian's
of it.
Version.
And Moody was like, oh, wow, 2 years of there really is support. Yes, let's do this. So 1958, they went for it. And people like you not just funded the station to launch with full security of 2 years of funding, but then continued to do so for the last 65-ish years or so. I don't do the math, Ron. You do.
66, I believe.
Yeah, we'll be 67 at the end of the year.
It's wild.
November 23rd, 1958.
And so all we do is a couple times a year, we set aside a couple of days to remind you that that's how this thing launched. What you get to enjoy every day, whether it's this program or another program, Chris Fabry, Chris Brooks, Janet Parshall, Open Line, whatever it is.
Bold Steps.
That you get to enjoy that because people like you have donated to the radio station. So we remind you. And we have some, little motivators for you. Beyond a good pat on the back of helping out, you can just, pat yourself on the back. We got some cool premiums for people, some cool things you get when you get to us.
Yeah, all gifts get the book Killing Sin. So it's a great book that you can use. It's a new Moody Publishers book. And it's for anybody. It's not specific to men or women. It's just how do you rid your life of sin? What's that one sin that keeps haunting you? How do you get rid of it and get rid of it for good? Surrender it to Christ. So everyone's going to get that book. If you give now, so during our pre-share time, so from now until March 7th, you'll get a mug that says the gospel changes everything. And you'll get that as a first-time donor. So if you're a first-time donor to Moody Radio, you've never given, you've been listening a while, and you want to bless this ministry because you've been blessed, you'll get that mug as well.
So would you consider giving now? You don't have to wait for it to start. It starts in a few weeks. You can give right now. Call 800-600-9624, 800-600-9624, or you can just text the word SHARE to 800-600-9624. If you're ready to give, we'd be blessed. If not, pray about it. and see how the Lord would lead you to financially support this radio station, just like so many people have done for almost 67 years here in Northeast Ohio.
Prayer. It's conversation between you and God. It's not a last resort. It's a first line of defense. Prayer is one of the most important actions we can take to end abortion and support the women and men on the front lines of helping people choose life. Not sure how to pray about the abortion issue? CareNet's free devotional series, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life, shares stories from the front lines of CareNet's pro-life ministry and guides you in daily prayer for those who are at risk for choosing abortion. Every day in your inbox, you'll discover inspiring, true stories of how God is saving unborn lives and giving abundant life to families. And you'll be a part of a special community of believers who are reading and praying along with you. Discover hope, deepen your faith, and become a champion of life. Access your free devotional, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life at care-net.org/Moody. care-net.org/Moody.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
The opinions expressed during this program represent the opinions of the participants and is given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace professional advice for your specific situation. You're now entering the Mornings with Brian courtroom. The cases are real. The attorney is real. But the team is completely clueless. It's time for Sidebar with attorney Nathan Zion, Esquire.
Order.
Gets me every time. We've been doing this a year and it still gets me.
Order. Nathan, order.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, right?
Attorney Nathan Zion, Esquire, founder of Mulhall Zion LLC, a boutique law firm here in Northeast Ohio, is back. And he's a Cedarville graduate.
That's true, yeah.
Well done.
Shout out
well
all
done.
the Yellow
Yay.
Jackets out there.
Oh, wow. Never knew that.
Yellow Jackets.
Oh.
Ooh, they're the bumblebees.
That's new.
The fighting bumblebees.
But okay, so today I love your topic. It's stewardship in estate planning. We've talked about estate planning before, which is essentially all the necessary legal work someone does to plan for what happens when they pass away with their assets and their debts and everything, right?
Correct. Yep. That's exactly right, Brian. Look at you, lawyer.
He's only been coming for a year.
Yeah, Brian paid attention. Wow, way to go, Brian. But you want to talk about stewardship in estate planning, and this is where I think there's a distinct advantage in working with an attorney who follows Christ, because not all attorneys are Christians. And I would imagine the goals may be different for an attorney and where they point somebody, right?
I think that's true, and I also think that Christian attorneys often miss the mark with this as well. Because I was in the law firms that I kind of got my experience in. We were focused just on normal estate planning stuff. There was no focus on Christian values or doing anything different for believers, right? And so all my experience came from just doing, I don't want to call them secular estate plans, but just normal estate planning things that you think about. And I think that's probably true for most lawyers. But what happened is I recently read a book that kind of brought up this topic for me. And the question that I was presented with was, how are you encouraging your clients to steward what God has given them? In other words, forget all the normal estate planning stuff. Gathering wealth, amassing it for yourself and your family, and then maybe giving to charities and all that stuff, but rather focus on how are you using your estate to benefit God's kingdom, really to complete the Great Commission. That was really kind of what the book was about. And it kind of changed the framework for me a little bit about, it convicted me, to be quite frank with you, how am I encouraging my Christian clients to complete the Great Commission? And I got to be honest, I don't do a great job of it. And so this kind of was a shift. Yeah, no, I talk about it. I often, we put in our wills and our trust for believers, like a statement of faith that maybe their kids would like to read after they're gone. Oftentimes they profess, oftentimes they'll profess, faith in Jesus. And so that's a good thing that they can share, but they're gone at that point, right? And so that's just kind of a written statement. What I'd rather see them do is use their estate to glorify God in the here and now, when they're here, and then when they pass away, kind of evaluate, how are you doing that? Are your kids going to carry on that legacy? Are they going to complete the Great Commission? Because the dirty truth is a lot of Christians' children aren't Christian, right?
Yeah.
They fall away from the faith, or maybe they don't have it to begin with. And so you need to ask, or I would encourage people to ask, are my kids going to carry on the Great Commission?
That's powerful stuff, and it causes you to kind of re-examine what biblical stewardship is. And I know you've done some looking into this, because traditional methods of estate planning would simply be, like I think you mentioned this, right? It's amass as much as you can and pass it on to either your favorite charity or your kids or both.
Yeah, largely. Yep.
The end.
Live a comfortable life. I mean, it's what I would call like American. I think in this book, I'm referencing a book by Jim Wise called Inheritology, or Inheritolatry. I always get that mixed up. But basically, we call it like the American way estate planning, where you kind of make enough wealth for your family to live happily and without need, really. And then you just pass that on, and you hope that your kids have a better financial position than you do. So you just keep paying it forward for your children and then their children and so on and so forth. And that's typical, right? Most clients I deal with.
And the goal is wealth, right? It's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Like each generation be more wealthy than the last.
Correct.
Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I most of the clients that I deal with, they want maybe some gifts to go to their church when they pass away, or maybe a gift to Moody Radio or something, some charity nonprofit, right? And after that, though, what's the default? Let's just split it amongst my kids. I have 3 kids. I split it 3 ways. I have 6 kids, 6 ways. Maybe there's a little tweaking in there, but largely it's just, hey, I give it to my kids. And so what Jim in his book asks, and what I've been challenged to think on is that the right framework? Is that really what God would want us to do with our estate? In some cases, yeah, and maybe a lot of cases, I don't know. But I think it's a personal decision that you have to consult God with, basically.
Right. And so it's up to each client to determine whether or not they want to examine a new way of stewarding their estate. It's their call. They have to seek the Lord. But if you want to kind of start giving us, like, what is this different framework? How does it look different to view biblical stewardship in estate planning?
I think it's a value shift. So I think it's going from how can I benefit my kids first? That's the primary thing. How can I keep my family in this wealth status or whatnot? And shifting to how can I help God's kingdom progress, right? That might mean I've seen people who die with nothing, right? We've read the stories of people who just give away everything. Maybe their kids think, oh, geez, I'm going to get a big fat check when my dad dies, right? And then there's nothing. Why? Because they've given it all away to charities, ministries, things like that. We look at those as the outliers. We think that's crazy. I mean, the average person would look at that and say, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you at least save, some of it for that, for your children? And so I think there's a mind shift that needs to happen of how is providing for my children really what God wants for me? Yes, it could be. I mean, certainly I think, a lot of factors come into play. I think of special needs right off the bat, right? Because that impacts our family. Special needs, obviously, that's a big portion of it. But then other situations, you might not want to provide for children. Maybe they make a decent a living and they don't need any sort of inheritance. So why would you go out of your way to give them more that just creates excess for them that they really don't need? Instead, maybe you redirect that to God's ministry in some way, shape, or form. Now, this isn't prescriptive. I'm not telling anyone to do this, but this is a personal decision that I think they need to consult God and ask him, how can we best use our resources? I mean, it just goes back to the biblical standard of God's owns everything. God owns everything. We are simply managing what he's given to us and blessed us with.
Yeah, and I see in your notes here, you referenced the parable of the talents kind of giving us that framework. And it's true, right? None of it really belongs to us. Although it sounds to me like you're saying, it's not that you don't give your kids something in your estate, but you reframe the priority. Mm-hmm. Because before it would have been, just everything to the kids so that it's like winning the lottery when your parents die.
Yep.
This might be, here's a gift, but the bulk of what your estate is might be gone by then. And I think wasn't it Wesley who did this? Died penniless?
I don't remember who.
One of those famous preachers from Europe or whatever, he died with nothing because he gave it all away when he was living.
Yeah. And you could use your children, if your children are carrying on the Great Commission work, that could be a good repository for your wealth, right? You could pass that on to your children, and then they would bless many more. Even if they run a business, I know plenty of business owners, outside of the church, they just are an entrepreneur and they make tons of money. But guess what they do? They give tons of money away and promote God's kingdom. So yes, they're not billionaires, but they're making a lot of money. So we look at that and say, oh, geez, is that really God's commission work, at work in your life? Yes, it is, because they behind the scenes are supporting families, cutting checks to give education to underprivileged people, all these sorts of things. So you could potentially give it to your children and have them complete the mission, but it's just a calculus that I think you need to run, and we don't often do that.
And I want to talk more in detail in just a minute, but I know the Moody Bible Institute sees this from one of our trustees from like the 1920s. This guy was the founder of Quaker Oats, Henry Parsons Kroll. We named one of our buildings after him, even though he asked us not to. Sorry, dude. But he was pretty awesome.
Well, D.L. Moody said, don't name the school after me, and here we are.
Yeah, well, we're going to do that. And I think Luther felt that way about Luther. Yeah, anyway. So the guy was fabulously wealthy, just tons of money, right? The Kroll Trust still gives sizable amounts of money to the Moody Bible Institute today because he was able to create an estate that not only would make money, but he'd continue giving to God's kingdom. Mm-hmm. Decades and decades and decades and decades after his death. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk more in detail about this again with our friend, attorney Nathan Zion, founder of Mulhall Zion LLC, a boutique law firm here in Northeast Ohio. as we talk about stewardship in estate planning. More in just a minute.
Attention, Latino men. Come stand alongside thousands of other Latino men worshiping in Spanish and answering God's call to live boldly for Him at Levantate, the only conference designed exclusively for Spanish-speaking men, on Saturday, March 29th at Moody's downtown campus. This life-changing one-day event features dynamic worship and powerful biblical teaching. Register today at moodyconferences.com/levantate. moodyconferences.com/levantate.
You know, you're really not stuck, really. People think when it comes to paying for health care, they just have to kind of go along with the way it is, no matter how frustrated they are with it. But it's not true. MediShare has been a huge help to people for 30 years now. And more these days, especially, people are realizing what a great alternative it is. And the difference isn't just the savings, which are huge. It's the whole thing. You're a part of something good. It's a community of people who care for and pray for and encourage each other. You don't have to pay for things you don't believe in either. You're actually sharing. And yeah, back to the savings, often up to $500 a month with MediShare. The customer service is refreshing too because they're for you. It's just a different way. And even though you might feel stuck with the frustrating status quo, it's not so. You can call them now and start saving and feeling better about how you're doing it too. Here's the number. It's 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Good morning, Cleveland. Thanks for choosing us to help you start your day. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Francesca Battistelli, 751 WCRF. Don't forget to get your Walk Worthy Men's Conference tickets. It's a week from Saturday, guys. Canton Baptist Temple. We'll see you there. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. In studio with us, everyone's favorite Christian attorney in Northeast Ohio, Attorney Nathan Zion Esquire, founder of Mulhall Zion LLC, a boutique law firm in Northeast Ohio. We're talking about stewardship and estate planning and how Attorney Zion here recently, I know you hate that, Nate, recently read a book that made him kind of flip on its head the idea of estate planning. Estate planning is usually just pile up a big pile of wealth, get a will and a trust so that you give it to your kids when you die. But is that what the Lord would want for us? Maybe not. Okay, so we're looking at biblical stewardship, and there's a term, inheritolatry.
Yeah. Fun one, isn't it?
Yeah. What is that again?
Yeah, so it comes from a book of the same name by Jim Wise, and basically what it means is the idolatry of inheritance. So thinking that inheritance and passing on your wealth to your kids is the end all, is the purpose of estate planning.
That's kind of convicting.
I think that's his goal. So he wrote this book. It was in a 2017 book, but it talks primarily about there's a huge wealth transfer that's going to happen because, baby boomers are reaching an older age and they're going to be transferring their wealth to the next generation and then on and on and on. But there's an insane amount of money. I mean, trillions and trillions of dollars that's going to change hands. Not overnight, but over a period of years. And so he was convicted to write this book to basically address that and say, what are Christians doing with the trillions that we've been entrusted, right? Is that really going to go towards Great Commission purposes, or is it going to just go to increasing the livelihood of children, right? It may be children who don't even believe in Christ and his mission.
Wow. So he's got a series of ways to rethink this and like his cure, so to speak, for inheritolatry.
Yeah, he lists out like 4 parameters to think through. And I don't agree with everything in the book or have fully fleshed it out, but I think these are great principles. And so I'll just read them. First, the inequality is permitted. So inequality like between children. So you can give more to one child than maybe the other.
Wow.
Inequality is permitted.
I guess you're gone,
Yeah, well, you don't have to deal with the fallout, right?
But I suppose the principle for a believer is if you want your money stewarded for the kingdom, you would probably give more to the child that's following Christ.
Potentially, or maybe you'd have faith in them that they would carry it out more. Yeah, but there are other things too. Again, I mentioned income levels, right? If you have one child who's a school teacher, right, making lower income, then maybe an entrepreneur who has their own business and has amassed a lot of wealth, or a CEO or something. You might want to do some unequal things, right, in order to balance the equities there. So that's one thing that he mentions, and he references some Bible stories that address that, like the firstborn gets a double share and all this kind of stuff. So he says inequality is permitted. So a lot of people, I think of my family as well, we always think, oh, well, I got to treat kids equally, right? Mm-hmm. That's the default. If you don't do that, that's a cardinal sin, or at least I think that. I don't know that that's true. So I challenge everyone on that point to question it. A second point is requests are acceptable. This is a big one for me. I often talk to people who have certain assets, like maybe a family home or maybe an heirloom. And when they come up on that, I say, well, you can't divide that in 6 ways, or at least you shouldn't, right? We've talked about maybe property, partitioning property and stuff.
So many arguments and problems, yeah.
So what do you want to do? You got to pick one, or you got to liquidate the asset and divide the proceeds. What do you want to do? And so I'm trying to push clients more here to say, ask your kids, does anyone want this? Is anyone going to bear, maybe the expense of it? If it's a family home or something, there's real estate taxes, all that involved. Maybe ask a child, and they would be willing to, I don't want to say take a hit, but take the property, get that benefit, and then maybe equal out the others with another asset. So asking your kids, what do you want from my estate? What brings you joy? Because there are some things that are just emotional, painting on a wall. Some people might say, I think of a vivid one. I have a picture of Jesus that was hanging in my grandparents' house. We don't have that anymore. I didn't end up getting that, but I vividly can picture that in my head. Maybe a child or a grandchild would want that. And so I do an audit, quote unquote, of your family and say, hey, do you want anything? So he encourages you to ask your kids if they want something. Limitations are prudent. So this is, basically you want to put limitations on your gifts so that you're not enabling things that you don't like or agree with. One would be retirement. I've seen people who, they win the lottery, then they give their children a chunk of that winning, and the kid just retires and says, I'm 30, but I'm done. I'm set for life, right? Mom and dad provided. Should you do that? Should you really do that? I don't know. Maybe, but probably not.
Yeah, that's probably not encouraging a healthy future.
Yeah. And there are other limitations as well. So, and then the last one he notes is responsibility is required. And this is where he asks people to evaluate their children and see, are they managing wealth properly or in accordance with what you think are biblical principles? Are they following the Lord? Are they doing what they should spiritually as well? So put aside the money for a second. Think about their family. Are they spiritually shepherding their kids? Are they doing these sorts of things? If not, then maybe adding wealth, which can only add problems to that situation, might not be the best thing. So he gives those kind of 4 key points to think through and evaluate person by person, right, client by client, and say, is this proper for your family to do?
And it sounds to me then like your role as a Christian attorney is not to tell people what to do with their estate. It's to help them make all the considerations and pose all the questions so they can feel good about their decision.
Yeah. This is where my practice is shifting to more values probing practice, where I want to find from a client, not just, hey, what are your assets? What's your net worth? What do you want to happen? Okay, here's the 6 documents that you need. That's a part of it for sure. I'm not dispensing with trusts or wills or anything like that. Those are all included. But I think where Christian attorneys should go and Christian clients should get attorneys who support this is a turn to values. Hey, what are you valuing? And run through the list of, do you really, do you want your kids to work hard? Do you want them to start their own business? Do you want them to go into ministry? Do you want them to become missionaries? Do you want to support them being missionaries if they already are? What are your values that you have as a family under God? And then how can we shift things around to support that in a better way, in a more approved way, so that when you pass away, the whole goal is that you end up with God saying, well done, good and faithful servant.
And now if somebody did have that audacious goal of spending all of their assets on kingdom work while they're alive, so that they're like whoever that famous preacher was, we don't know which one, that died with nothing. Is an attorney someone who can help you figure out how to do that?
Great question. Yes and no. So I actually just had a conversation a number of weeks ago with a guy who's trying to amass kind of a database of all these charities. And his goal, and I think this is great, is to match up people who have money with charities that need money and are mission oriented. And the whole idea that he is pursuing is how can I match people up with their passions and their desires, but find a charity that supports that same thing. So I think of like prison ministries. If you have a heart for the imprisoned, right? You don't necessarily want to give to Moody Radio, perhaps. Maybe you want to look for someone who goes into prison, starts a church, disciples inmates, those sorts of things. I know and am aware of some of those charities, but there are financial advisors out there. There's a whole network of people that have this. So I talk to your accountants, I talk to your financial advisors and your attorneys, and tell them a little bit about where your heart is, where God has given you a passion to minister to people. Maybe it's the poor. I think of Haven of Rest and all these kind of homeless ministries that are out there. Maybe that's your passion. Let's find that and then maybe give to them during your life and provide for them in your will or your trust as well. So my goal over the next however many years I'm practicing is to kind of help that database grow so that when a client comes to me, I can match up their values and what God's blessed them with a ministry that supports that as well.
Well, we can't thank our friend, attorney Nathan Zion Esquire, enough. He's founder of Mulhall Zion, LLC, a boutique law firm here in Northeast Ohio. And as you can hear from his conversation, Nathan's a follower of Jesus, and he wants to kind of aim his practice that way. Not kind of. He wants to aim his practice in that direction. And if you need help in your estate planning or something, you want to reach out to him, just come to us. We'd love to connect you with Nathan Zion. Otherwise, just Google it. There's only one Mulhall Zion, I think, right?
Yeah, I actually had a client who misspelled one of the words and it came up like a restaurant in Florida. So just
So you're not a restaurant in Florida?
We're not a restaurant in Florida. No, we have no locations, no chains, nothing like that. We don't give fried chicken out.
Maybe you should think about that.
We're trying to figure out what did he do wrong on the Google search? How are we conflated with a chicken restaurant?
I don't know.
Could be worse.
It could. Yes, that's right. It really
thank
could be
you.
worse.
Thank you, Lord.
Again, Mulhall Zion LLC is the firm, and our friend Nathan Zion is the attorney. So thanks again, Nathan, for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Love being with you guys.
And I'm thinking a lot about this idea of inheritolatry. Not only is it a crazy word, but I think a lot of people do turn their estate into an idol.
Yeah, we've got some comments that we can talk about again on Friday.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you, Nathan. We'll talk soon. It's 8:02, time for Ron's News.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Israel is set to receive more hostages held by Hamas on Saturday. It's 8:02. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Sources told NBC News that in addition to these hostages, Hamas is expected to turn over the bodies of dead hostages on Thursday. Every previous release of Israeli hostages has been accompanied by the release of several Palestinians detained in Israeli prisons. Canton City Councilman Greg Hawk has passed away. Hawk was serving on council since 2002, representing Canton's Ward 1. He passed away Saturday at the age of 74. A Geneva woman is accused of human trafficking. Authorities in Ashtabula County say 29-year-old Jennifer Myers' home was raided earlier this month following a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Based on the search, a victim was located in the Richmond Heights area and rescued. In sports, NFL teams can now begin franchise tagging players this afternoon. Neither the Browns nor the Steelers are expected to tag any of their players. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly cloudy with highs around 13. Wind chill values as low as 11 below this morning, so do be careful and be sure you cover up any exposed skin. At last check, flurries and 8 degrees in Cleveland. Clear skies in the Akron area, 4 degrees. Lorraine, Elyria, clear and 6.
It's time for your moron moment.
Do you ever get sick of seeing ads for things that you have no interest in? In Google's Ad Center, you can browse everything Google knows about you and delete it if you want. You block ads that you don't like and adjust the categories that you see. You see, since you're the product on these free social media platforms, you have to have some ads, but they might as well be relevant to you. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:05. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
809 WCRF. Mornings with Brian. And hey, you know what? We've got the Walkworthy Men's Conference coming up a week from Saturday.
Yes, we do.
Ron's going to be there. What else do you need to know? If you want to know more, we're going to have preaching and teaching from Pastor Mike Frazier, Pastor Rodney Maiden, Pastor Paul Cannings, a panel discussion where you'll be able to ask questions about issues you're dealing with and struggles you have as a man, and we'll get some powerful answers from a panel of pastors.
Mm-hmm.
Text the word WALK to get your tickets today. Text WALK to 440-546-2255.
One of the things I love about Walkworthy is they provide donuts at the beginning. You know, you're coming in, you get some donuts and coffee, and they're always very generous in the amount of donuts that they purchase.
There's a lot of donuts.
I could literally eat donuts the entire time I'm there, and there would still be leftovers.
Well, because there is this thing for a guy, right? You're like, wait, they got donuts. We better get there so we can get one.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that problem. Part of your fee
There's
is
plenty.
Yeah.
There will be plenty. It's like loaves and fishes, baby, but donuts.
Yes, and then they also give you the donut holes because they have to push them out.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. Like with the
They're like, we can't have all these donut holes. Please take these also.
It's wild.
And donut holes don't feel like real, you know?
Yeah, it's like it doesn't count.
You know what I'm saying? They don't count because they're just donut
So you can have
holes.
as many as you want, Ron. That's the point she's making.
I get that.
That's
It's
what
not
it feels
a donut.
like.
It's just the whole
It's
part.
just a donut hole.
We're going to have
Please.
like 5 of these. Come on.
Oh, or more. Yeah.
So would you like a donut? I mean, just for that, text the word WALK to 440-546-2255. Look at what we have here. I feel like maybe this is a secret thing that Lauren's doing to try to help
I
me.
didn't know.
It's an intervention of sorts. Dr.
We can make it that way if you'd like.
Dr. Chris Rappazini, Associate Professor of Leadership at Anderson University. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, good morning. You guys are making me hungry with all this donut talk.
Yeah, I feel like Lauren should have brought, as the leader here, she should have brought us donuts today.
I'm trying to lay off the donuts.
And I feel like
other people bring them to us enough.
I feel convicted here, Lauren. It's how to start exemplifying leadership
Yeah,
habits.
that's right.
Is this wink, wink, nudge, nudge? Hey, Brian.
No, maybe it's for me.
That's not true. I'm more of like a follower.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
okay. We need
is
both,
that
don't
bad,
we?
Dr. Rappazini?
Well, in a sense, we're all followers and we're all leaders. So wherever you are in your position or at your church or your organization, I think we're all followers in some sense and we're all leaders. So we all can grow in our leadership habits that we can build.
When I've been trying to lead up, as they say, little resistance on the management part here, I guess. So maybe we'll have to work on that next time, Lauren.
Maybe. Would you like to pick a topic?
She just gave me. Oh, gosh. So, okay, we all do need to work on this in a sense, because you're right. We're all leaders in some aspect of our lives. So what are kind of the building blocks to start building those habits?
Yeah, well, what I was really influenced by was a book, and it's a very famous book. Probably many of your listeners have read it. It's James Clear's Atomic Habits. And what he talks about is just building habits just in your general life. But since I am a leadership researcher, I thought, well, okay, how do we build leadership habits? And he has 4 laws of behavior change. 1 is to make it obvious. 2 is to make it easy. 3 to make it attractive. And 4 to make it rewarding. And when you think about each of those and how can it affect me as a leader, there's many small things that we can do to improve in our leadership, to become better leaders. But it starts with just building these habits.
Okay, so what are the 4 things again he says are keys to building a habit? It's obvious, easy.
Yeah. Yep. Make it obvious, easy, make it attractive, and make it rewarding. And we can talk about any one of these if you like. But yeah, obvious, easy, attractive, and rewarding.
Well, I want to go through them. This is great. Let's talk about making a habit obvious. What is that? What do you mean?
Yeah, so this is something that you want to do that is obvious to you, so it's a reminder that you need to do this. So, for instance, you could place a sticky note on your laptop that says, hey, encourage a teammate today. Or if you want to build the habit of giving feedback to your team, maybe on your calendar you write Feedback Friday. Or, I think so this is just putting it out, putting it, in your workspace so that you're reminded of it consistently. And it's a cue that's visible. It's hard for you to ignore. So, okay, that's something that I need to do. And I can do it either at this time or I can do it when this opportunity comes because it's obvious.
So it's more of like a low-hanging fruit aspect of it. If you want to do it, I don't know, write it down. Right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting because what the research shows is that when you want to build habits, you have to start small. You can't just overnight, all of a sudden have this leadership skill that you've always wanted. It's like going to the gym, right? You have to go to the gym consistently over the long haul to get your body in shape.
That's
you can't
my
just
problem.
go once a week or even once a month and look like a bodybuilder. You have to go consistently over and over again. And so what's the low-hanging fruit when it comes to these leadership habits? Make it obvious.
Okay, so make it obvious. What about make it easy? I like this one already.
Yeah, make it easy. I like this one too. So start small and fit it into your already scheduled routine. So for instance, if you want to, let's just say, read up on more leadership books or leadership articles, instead of, okay, I bought this book, now I have to read this book in 2 weeks. No, start with just reading 1 page a day instead of committing to a whole chapter or 10 pages. If you want to delegate tasks more, identify just one simple task to delegate each morning. And so make it very simple. I mean, for instance, on a athletic, getting into shape thing, what I've done, just my own personal life, is I like to work out in the mornings, but I also like to stay in bed, especially on cold days. So what I've done, though, to make it easier to get out of bed in the morning is the night before, I get my tennis shoes ready, my athletic gear ready in the morning. So boom, as soon as I get out of bed, it's easy to get into the athletic mode and then get into an athletic routine. So when it comes to those leadership habits, what can you do to make it easy so you can step into that leadership habit that you want to grow and build in?
Suddenly my temptation to set the bar low doesn't sound so bad, does it?
Hey, we have to start somewhere.
This is every New Year's. Ron and I talk about this. You set the bar real low, and then you just blow your goal out of the water. Yeah. But I like the concept, right? If you make it impossible, you're never going to do it. It's got to be attainable. And so, reading a page a day is not setting the bar low. I think for many people, it's a realistic goal, but it's easy.
Right, and for instance, if let's say that you wanted to say, hey, I want to start a Christian Bible study at my work. Well, it's kind of hard to just go ahead and start that from scratch. You could say, yeah, okay, we're going to do Bible study on Wednesdays at lunchtime. Instead, why don't you start by just praying at the beginning of a meal or a meeting with your group, right? Something small, easy, and then build into where you want to be in the long haul.
Very good. It's 8:17. Our guest is Dr. Chris Rappazini, Associate Professor of Leadership at Anderson University, also former professor at Moody Bible Institute, and I believe, aren't you a graduate of the Institute as well?
I am indeed, yes.
Alongside one Dr. Nick Gatsky.
That's right. He is my good friend. We actually went to the same undergrad and the same seminary, and we have been mentored by the same person for probably the last 20, 30 years. Yep.
He's legendary. He brings you up every time I see him. So
he is legendary, that's for sure.
And he's got the hair. It's not fair. The older I get, I just get frustrated. One time he had a sabbatical and he just didn't get a haircut for 6 months or whatever, and he's the only person who looked better without a haircut after 6 months. Who does that? Him. All right.
Who does that?
8:18, coming up in just a minute, we'll continue chatting with Dr. Rappazini about how to build those habits that can begin solid leadership in your life.
It's not insurance, and that's a new way of thinking for some families. Christian Healthcare Ministries is a credible way to meet family healthcare costs affordably, biblically, and effectively, whether starting or growing your family. Serving families as a nonprofit healthcare sharing ministry for over 40 years, CHM has offered families the freedom to choose how they would like to meet healthcare costs. Be pleasantly surprised and find answers to your questions at chministries.org/Moody. That's chministries.org/Moody. Prayer. It's conversation between you and God. It's not a last resort. It's a first line of defense. Prayer is one of the most important actions we can take to end abortion and support the women and men on the front lines of helping people choose life. Not sure how to pray about the abortion issue? CareNet's free devotional series, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life, shares stories from the front lines of CareNet's pro-life ministry and guides you in daily prayer for those who are at risk for choosing abortion. Every day in your inbox, you'll discover inspiring, true stories of how God is saving unborn lives and giving abundant life to families. And you'll be a part of a special community of believers who are reading and praying along with you. Discover hope, deepen your faith, and become a champion of life. Access your free devotional, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life at care-net.org/Moody. care-net.org/Moody.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
.23, how can we build leadership habits? We're talking about that here on WCRF's Mornings with Brian with our friend Dr. Chris Rappazini, a Moody Bible Institute graduate, friend of Dr. Nick Gatsky of Old North Church, and associate professor of leadership at Anderson University. We've been talking about the book Atomic Habits is kind of where some of this comes from. And there's 4 principles on how to build habits. And so if you want to build leadership habits, these would certainly apply. We've talked about make it obvious, make it easy, make it attractive. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, so making it attractive is you want to pair the habit with something enjoyable so that you look forward to doing this habit. So for instance, let's say that one of the habits is you want to get to know your teammates better. Okay, well, how can I get to know them better, but also make it enjoyable and make it attractive to something I want to do? So, okay, how about we, and this is very simple, we go out and we have a cup of coffee together, but somewhere nice, somewhere fun. So it's attractive. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I get a reward from that, making it attractive for me, but also it's enjoyable. Or let's say that you have the goal of making your workplace more joy-filled. Well, maybe what you can do is make it attractive by listening to a joy-filled music either in the car before you arrive at your workplace, or just having joyful music playing in the background of your organization or of your church. So what you're trying to do is you're pairing the habit with something enjoyable so that it's fun, not just for you. It's something that you look forward to, but it's something that other people look forward to as well.
I loved the idea of getting to know people better by having coffee. I love the idea. While you were saying that, Lauren looked at me and mouthed the words, "I'm not doing that for you."
Yes. I did. Because I didn't want you to look at me anymore. Just saying, please take me to coffee.
But no, I mean, I understand the principle of what you're saying. I think it's helpful, right? Because if it's a miserable thing, like, oh boy, I'm going to spend the whole day just talking to people. I don't like talking to people. You're not going to want to do it.
Well, no, you don't want to spend the whole day. But if one of the things that you want to grow in as a leader is empathy for your teammates, well, you need to get to know them. And so how can I have empathy for them if I don't know them? And how can I know them if I don't actually talk to them? And so talking to them outside of work is important for leaders most of the time.
And food. Buying them food.
And food. Well, even, we talked about the Walk Worthy conference. Yeah. They've made it attractive by offering donuts and donut holes beforehand, right? So it's they've increased the appeal before you actually take the action of going.
Very good. Yes, I like that. Okay. And then rewarding. It has to be
rewarding. And that's right. And this goes it's very similar to making it attractive, slightly different, but you want to be able to create a positive reward or the immediate feedback after the habit. So it's reinforcing that habit. So for instance, if you, as a leader, you keep a checklist, just cross it off the checklist. I mean, that it feels good to see progress, or maybe celebrate those small wins by rewarding yourself with a treat. So maybe after that conversation you had with a coworker, maybe then go get a Snickers bar, or, go get something fun to eat as a reward for you to say, hey, I accomplished this. If I did it once, I could do it again and again.
And I suppose these can be kind of messed up. It makes me think of some of the funny videos you see of people at Planet Fitness eating pizza while they're working out.
Well, yes. And I was going to say it could be a healthy treat as well, which so that's what I try to do is stay away from the Snickers. But hey, instead, what I'm going to do is, reward myself with, I don't know, some kind of healthy granola or something like that that's actually tastes good.
So then if someone is interested in this concept, right, of, I do want to build some good leadership habits, how do you prioritize what leadership habit to start with if you're going to make these habits happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say maybe just look at your leadership and look at your team and just ask yourself, okay, what's one area that we can grow in, that I can grow in as a leader? Is it building trust with my teammates? Is it delegation? Is it transparency? Is it empathy? Is it honesty? How do I want to grow as a leader? And then along with starting small, another trick is to try to habit stack. In other words, there are habits in our lives that we already do. And so if you can stack a habit onto that, then you're already one step along the way. So for instance, after you grab your morning coffee, send an encouraging text to a team member. Or after your Monday morning meeting, spend 10 minutes organizing your priorities for a week. So you've habit stacked. You already have one habit in place, so you're stacking another habit onto it. And whatever that second habit onto it is based on, how do you want to grow as a leader? And it takes some self-reflection. It could be even asking an accountability partner or asking your teammates of, hey, how can I grow as a better leader so that we can go farther faster?
Great stuff yet again from our friend Dr. Chris Rappazini. He's an associate professor of leadership at Anderson University, Moody Bible Institute graduate, former professor at Moody as well. And he's a Moody Publishers author. You got to remind folks about your book, what it's called, and how to get it.
Yeah, it's called Moving Forward After Messing Up. A Second Chances book, A New Future with the God of Second Chances. And it was a great thing. It was a great time writing that book, and it was released last May. And they can find it either on Moody Publishing or just go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Target website, and you can find it there.
What about connecting to Anderson University if someone wants to look into your leadership program?
Yeah, so that's Anderson University, and it's in South Carolina. There's one in Indiana as well, but we are located in South Carolina. We're part of the Center for Leadership and Organizations. Or you could just Google Faithful Steps Forward. So that's what I like to do when I'm not at Anderson, is I love to help people with their leadership skills. And so whether it's virtually on Zoom with teams or one-on-one, or just coming for a day or two and helping consult teams and churches with leadership. I love doing that. So that's faithfulstepsforward.com, or just Google Chris Rappazini. I'm the only one out there.
Wonderful. Thanks again, Dr. Rappazini. We'll talk again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. I know Ron was really keen on this, Lauren getting us donuts and food and stuff while she leads us.
Well, it is up to her, but if she really wanted to
sweet guy.
express love,
I think we get plenty of donuts here that don't come from me. I don't think we need to add another day on.
Yes. Yeah, one of the sweet things about our station manager, he's really the world's greatest boss.
Yes, he is.
Michael Scott, not even close.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
So he has this funny habit, it's so sweet, of getting us donuts.
Or any
the same
treats.
day someone else got us donuts.
Yeah, it happened last
Before
week,
that.
didn't it? Yeah.
And the week before
And the
that
week
as
before
well.
that.
He doesn't know, he's a sweet guy.
Donuts
he's doing
on
it.
donuts.
And so we're all kind of like, oh, thanks. And
Wednesday's a big donut day around here.
yeah, but keep in mind, for those interested, Thursdays are available.
And Fridays.
I believe Mondays and Tuesdays. We do accept donuts, Ron? Is that accurate?
Yes. You can have them delivered to 9756 Bar Road in Brecksville, Ohio, anytime.
What about homemade treats, Ron?
Yes, I personally will accept them. I know some people are a little finicky about, what your home kitchen looks like.
Are you looking at me?
Have to have a picture of that or something.
Send a picture of what your kitchen looks like with your home baked goods.
Oh, speaking of my cleanliness habits, guys, before we get to this break, I think I've decided what the most unsanitary thing is in the world. Well, okay, that's dramatic, but one of the most unsanitary things that I encountered in my life.
Is it your phone?
No.
Because it's your phone.
Yeah,
Don't.
probably.
My phone, clean. No, okay.
Oh.
So I go to the drive-through pharmacy yesterday, and they hand me the little clipboard and pen to sign for the
Sick
prescriptions.
people signing on stuff.
And I think to myself, how many violently ill people have touched this? It's never been cleaned. And she handed it to me and then left the window. I'm holding this in my hands for an extended period. I set it down like on the part of the car. I'm like, I don't want that on my car. So I'd have to hold it up. And then I did a double dose of sanitizer, guys. I drive forward, put on some, rub it in until it's gone. Before I turn out of the parking lot, one more pump.
Yeah.
I mean,
Did you just keep this in your cup holder?
it's in the door. There's a little pocket in the door.
Our pediatrician's office in Cuyahoga Falls, they do have a sick door and a well door.
That is genius.
And different waiting rooms for both, which I appreciate.
I think the pharmacy needs the sick clipboard and the healthy clipboard.
Yeah, if you're coming just for your annual checkup, go in the well door. If you're going because you have a sickness you need to be checked out for, you're going in a sick door.
I mean, isn't that the grossest thing?
Yeah, I never thought about that.
You're welcome.
It's probably people doing the drive-through are because they feel
Yeah, they don't want to go
more
inside.
sick, and they
Yeah, I
wanna
don't use the drive-through unless I'm sick. I go in otherwise.
Great, another thing to be scared of.
Daria, it's cold. Why would I want to get out of the car?
I don't like going through the drive-through. It's just a me thing.
Yeah, me too.
I go in it.
Well, okay, fine. So you go sign for your card at the pharmacy with that pen that's attached to the thing.
Yeah, with the string.
Gross.
How is that any grosser than the pen they handed you out the window?
Because you have to take your hand and set it to the side and walk out and not touch yourself with that hand. You can't touch your face or anything.
You touched your steering wheel to pull
You-
forward.
You walk outside and
You gotta
you
clean your steering
douse
wheel
that
now.
puppy. I actually sometimes reach across the counter because they always have a big jug of it because they live by sick people, basically.
Yeah.
And I go, excuse me, I'm just going to grab some of this here. I'll just take some. Because it's mine, too. You can't.
Yeah?
You just made me touch this disgusting, sick stuff. I'm doing that.
Maybe you need like a dispenser in your
Yeah,
in your
there is
car. And
A
it, like
what
somehow
dispenser?
and it like somehow refills itself. A Purell.
Oh, I
No,
have
no.
one in my car.
No, I mean like it like refills.
Built in?
Yeah, and you have to like you push a button in your car and it dispenses. Maybe you push a button in your car and it purifies your steering wheel.
Lauren, we need to flesh this out. Go to Shark Tank. We need to make some money on this idea. I'm in. 834 WCRF.
Set up your phone or other calendar for Walk Worthy, our annual men's conference on March 1st. Paul Cannings from Power Walk, Mike Frazier from Rejoicing in Truth, and Rodney Maiden from The Edifying Word will be speaking. And don't forget about the fellowship and worship music. We hope to see you again, or for the first time, at Canton Baptist Temple. Whether you want to come in person or via live stream, register at moodyconferences.com or text WALK to us at
440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
This is Mornings with Brian from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studios. Christian counseling for adults, couples, children, and families. North Coast Family Foundation. Welcome back, team. There's a spiritual concept I wanted to cover here on Mornings with Brian at WCRF that I think is somewhat of a mystery to a lot of people. And it's the idea of finding fellowship in Christ's suffering. Have we heard this concept before? I know Lauren has. She's a Moody grad.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably heard this.
Oh, yeah, the terminology.
And it's I think, somewhat of a oddity for a lot of folks. And it comes primarily from Philippians 3. I've got two different versions of this. I've got the NIV and the NLT. Philippians 3, verse 10 is kind of where this comes from. And it's after Paul talks about how frustrated he is by people who try to insist you have to be circumcised to be a Christian. And he's like, no. And then he says, I want to know Christ. Yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining the resurrection from the dead. The NLT, I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. I want to suffer with him, sharing in his death. And somebody might hear that and go, why in the world would you want to do that? What's that? What do you mean? You want to share in his suffering? Nobody wants to do that. It's America.
Right.
I don't want suffering. I want blessing.
Yeah, share in his riches, but not in his suffering.
So what do we think Paul's talking about here? When you guys read that, how does that absorb into your soul?
Christ suffered for us. He paid the penalty for our sin. And we want to share in that we want to be part of that with him. We don't want to be outside of it, but by accepting his free gift of salvation, in a sense, we're sharing in that suffering with him.
Yeah, and I think this ties directly as well to the concept that we'd like to reject as Christians as well, even though it's plainly in Scripture. Those who are in Christ will be persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I say it's a indicator of your faith in Christ? It's like you should expect it.
Right.
If you're going to follow Christ, there's going to be suffering. Fair?
Yeah.
We don't like that in America because we'd rather have prosperity. Even if we don't call it that, we'd rather have that.
Right. And I think this passage is talking about when you're made new in Christ, when you die with Christ, it's an ongoing process of being sanctified throughout our life, dying to yourself every day. And we have to, because we are still in between, the not yet. We've been saved, but we're not in heaven yet. We're not fully made perfect yet. We have to die to ourselves every day because we do still have sin nature and sinful desires and sinful thoughts. And so every day we have to die with Christ.
And I had many years where I thought of that more as kind of like oh, cute. Like, oh, look at me, I'm a sinner. Yay, Jesus. That's not fulfilling what that's talking about. Dying to self. I tried to soften it and be like, yes, I agree with you, Jesus. I'm a sinner. High five. Back to my happy day. No, this is actually growing in holiness through being confronted by your sinfulness.
Yeah, it's putting to death your desires so that Christ's desires can reign freely in you. And if you don't die with Christ, you don't get to resurrect with Christ either. There's no such thing as resurrection when you're already alive. So you have to die to yourself and with Christ so that you can be raised with him as well.
And I think it's easy to make that trivial as well. Go like, yes, Jesus first. He's first in my life. Amen. Let's go. I mean, if you're going to have Christ's desires become your own, you're going to consider others more important than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just that. Let's take that. I'm horrible at that.
Oh, yeah.
Every moment.
Yeah, I'm always putting myself first.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
And even like if you're in a marriage conflict, it's hard to even disentangle. Like when you're in a marriage conflict, it's usually, well, it's all their fault. And if we could just fix my wife, my husband, then we'd be fine. No. The only way to really get through those conflicts is self-reflection and seeing where you've messed up. Mm-hmm. And so it's not fun growing in holiness.
No, you have to, Christ emptied himself and fully took on humanity, and we have to do a similar thing of taking on the mind of Christ. And how does he treat people? How does he want people to be treated? How did he put himself to death for us? We have to do the same for others.
And somebody might hear that and go, well, ew, I don't want to be a Christian. That sounds horrible. Right? I mean, in that sense, it sounds horrible. Oh, yeah, come on in. Let's suffer.
Yeah.
So why would you want to do that?
You have to realize first that you are the chief of sinners. That you aren't the center of the universe. That you are evil and wicked, and you have thoughts that are profane. You have thoughts that are, you put yourself above God. You want to put yourself above God. Reminder, that's what Satan did. He wanted to be above God. He wanted to be God. And we do that too, unless we submit ourselves to Christ first. And then we get to live a really fulfilled life of serving others and find joy in that.
Yeah, there's pure joy in the idea that we're forgiven in spite of our horribleness.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off that, hey, there's actually nothing that I can do. Christ did it all for me. He died and was raised for me. And so I get to trust him, and I get to be grateful and thank him and live my life in him.
Yeah, and that's where people don't quite grasp, where you don't dwell on the negative per se, as in, as you examine your sinfulness, you're like, oh, this is terrible. Lord, forgive me. And Christ died for me anyway. And that sorrow, godly sorrow, turns into joy.
Yeah.
And that's what motivates you to keep growing. And really, when you grow in holiness, it's not a fun process, but it's a fulfilling journey, I think is a good way to put that.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems, though, and I want to get to Peter's answer to this. I'd forgotten about this verse. But in 1 Peter, we get this distinction that I think a lot of Americans miss today. Because what they'll tell you is, I'm suffering with Christ. I mean, this Christmas, you should have heard it. Nobody said Merry Christmas at the store. I am suffering here. Or, someone looked at me funny because I had a cross on my neck. Oh, suffering with Christ. Look at me. High five. Is that what we're talking about here? We'll see what Peter has to say on that in just a minute.
This February, join Today in the Word for an eye-opening devotional, The Truth About Temptation. We've all experienced the pull of the world and the flesh, and in this devotional study, you'll discover how you can recognize and respond to temptation with biblical wisdom. Devotional author Brad Bahrain invites you to learn from people in the Bible who resisted temptation. To join our study, go to todayintheword.com. Be empowered to live in victory over temptation. todayintheword.com.
The gospel must be told in new ways to every generation, since every generation has its own unique questions. Hi, I'm Rob West of Faith and Finance Live. Sharing the gospel with this generation is at the heart of Moody Radio, and your gifts to share are the lifeblood that keeps this ministry pumping out the saving message of Christ. Your pre-share gift now is vital in helping us start our event strong on March 11th.
Give today at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Moody Radio is thankful for support for businesses across the country, like Fellowship Home Loans. Whether purchasing or refinancing a home, Mike and Brian walk hand in hand with clients through the whole process. You can learn more about their approach to mortgage lending at fellowshiphomeloans.com.
Get up, get ready, and get going. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
851 WCRF. We've talked about it before here on the show, but there's a lot of talk about persecution. Now, there are countries for which people are literally locked inside shipping containers for years.
Mm-hmm.
They are murdered, tortured, imprisoned because they love Jesus.
Right.
That's why. Now, I wrestle with that word used at all in our country, but it is something we say. Like it's certainly become more uncomfortable to be a Christian in our country. I think that's a fair thing.
Right. It was the de facto lifestyle, I guess, of 40s, 50s, right on up, and has slowly been becoming less so. That the standard answer would be, what religion are you? Oh, I'm a Christian. They didn't understand what they were saying, but they thought, I'm an American, therefore I'm a Christian.
And I think I've seen a trend over time as well that our approach has been, I'm being persecuted in our country, and that needs to stop. And so when you compare that to the persecuted church around the world, we've talked about this many times, when you ask the persecuted church for prayer, their prayer is almost never pray that this will stop.
Right.
It's give me the faith to endure, strengthen my faith. And I think that's kind of the temperature of what Paul is saying here in Philippians 3:10. We're talking about we ought to share in the sufferings of Christ, participate in the sufferings of Christ. It's part of the Christian journey to endure hardship for following Jesus. He told us to expect it. Jesus did. But I think there's an interesting distinction Peter makes that we have to remember in our country, and I want to process through this with you guys. And I'd forgotten about this passage. I love discovering Bible verses again. 1 Peter 4:14. So be happy when you're insulted for being a Christian, for then the glorious Spirit of God rests upon you. If you suffer, however, it must not be for murder, stealing, making trouble, or prying into other people's affairs. But it's no shame to suffer for being a Christian. How do you process what he's saying there?
Yeah, it's not something to be ashamed of. I think it's a hard switch of our brain, but you should be glad.
You should literally be glad that you're suffering.
That someone saw Christ in you so much that they wanted to persecute you.
It means you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
And notice he's saying, the way I'm reading it is, be careful to make sure they're not disliking you and persecuting you because you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
Again,
Paul
he's
was
saying,
never asked to be released from prison.
Right.
He said, no, it's all right. I'll stay here to preach the gospel more, actually.
Yeah, in fact, he may have, apart from God's providence, of course, lived a lot longer had he not appealed to Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
Because people kept wanting to let him go because he didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, Peter's saying it must not be, if you suffer, for murder, stealing, making trouble.
A lot of us like to make trouble.
Or prying into other people's affairs. So I think that produces something in us, though, right? And this is a very controversial thing these days because people are in a fight mood. But we're called to take up our cross, which is suffering. And we're blessed when we suffer.
Mm-hmm.
How do we shift in this?
That's a good question, Brian. I think we have to be very self-introspective, I guess.
I like them both.
Yeah, because we do, we like when we get on the keyboard and type something and it's like, gotcha. Well, the gotcha is probably not a good Christian activity. And so if we get out of that, and I'm kind of losing my train of thought here.
Well, no, but I know where you're headed. It's how do I train my brain to not have a visceral reaction to someone disliking me because of my Christian faith? And maybe principles and expectations of the Lord in the midst of that.
Right. Let somebody have the last word. Let them have the upper hand. It's okay. You reside in Christ, so it doesn't matter if they think ill of you because you're a Christian. God thinks well of you. And that's what matters.
Yeah, and the same Jesus who said, you will be persecuted, said, love God, love your neighbor, is how you summarize everything. Someone, summarize it all, Jesus. Love God, love your neighbor. And where it's really that simple. It amazes me how often the epistles are really like, hey, guys, love your neighbor. Love God. Love your neighbor, love God. You're going to be persecuted. Make sure it's not for being a jerk, but hey, love your neighbor, love God. So even when you suffer, you're to find joy, and dare I say, love your neighbor. So you're loving the person who's hating you for Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we make that hard? That's not hard. That seems pretty clear to me. That's repeated over and over and over.
Well, it's clear, but it's not easy to do that.
Correct.
We're still people, and we are always going to fall short of God's glory every single time.
But for some reason, I'm not certain the church in America, so to speak, even agrees on the clarity of that.
I think that's just culture getting in the way of the gospel. I think we put our cultural context ahead of what the actual context is saying.
Right. We start mixing it into a soup that's more than just Christian faith. Now, people may be filling in blanks in my mind that are not there. There's a lot of blanks in my mind, but I'm just trying to say if the formula is that simple, maybe we can breathe a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm supposed to be persecuted. I'm going to share in the sufferings of Christ. It's going to make me more holy. And while I'm working on loving Jesus more deeply and conforming my life to him, I'm going to love the people who persecute me. Pray for those who persecute me rather than rage against them. But we live in an era where we were talking about it earlier, what, rage baiting or
Rage baiting.
like people are rage baiting Christians and we are just like stupid fish grabbing the hook, you know? It's just so easy. And I don't know how to rediscover the simplicity of what we're called to. It's hard to live it out, but the simplicity of the call is pretty clear, isn't it? I feel that way.
Yeah, again, I think it's a simple calling on its face, but actually doing that is really hard. Actually loving people is really hard.
Really hard.
Yeah. So yes, the words that I read are simple, but the action of loving others is really hard.
It is so hard to live it out. And yet I still experience the social media Christian warrior like going, yeah, Beatitudes. Jesus flipped the tables. Yeah. And then grab a sword. And we're skipping past all of you're going to be persecuted. Love God. Conform your life to Jesus. Love him more. Love your neighbor. Love your enemy. Feed them. Pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
Care for the poor. It's clear. We just have to.
It's clear,
we
but
just
it's
have
hard.
to trip together trying to live that out as opposed to flipping to the table flipping.
Yeah, and ask for forgiveness when you don't do it right or do it well.
Yeah, but that's why we need Christian community and accountability so that we can journey together in the midst of Christ's suffering. Well, that's about it for us today.